The following show is for mature audiences only.
Yeah, I think he's the future and beyond. And if he isn't, I would bet my career as a GM on going down with the ship with Justin Fields, because I think that you've seen enough in terms of his willingness to work, the improvement from last year's disaster, the 2021 disaster, and what he's been able to do beyond that. You've seen the moments. It's just that, does he have the optimal surrounding talent in terms of the offensive line, in terms of, you know, the types of receivers that you want to have, the tweaks to the offense that you would want to make that really allow you to see the best of him and maximize his skills. And it takes more than one season to really know what your quarterback does best sometimes, especially when you've had so many changes, and especially when you went from just a shit show with, we won't mention his name, to this past year, and you're still trying to add and change talent around. And part of it too is, what schematic adjustments can we make now that we've seen Fields acclimate to the changes that we made last year? Justin Fields is good enough for that. I think for the team to be able to become a playoff contender for years to come, if he has the support system. And right now, when I look at the Bears receivers, just to start there, I understand the Chase Claypool trade in theory. You know, you're trying to upgrade and you're trying to get a player who can offer big plays for you. I think Claypool is that guy that, if you can move him around, kind of like Kenny Golladay, if you move him around and you have two good receivers that can command, that can create binds in the secondary, then you can match Claypool up in scenarios where he can really become a big play artist for you. But if you're asking him to be the number one, I think he still hasn't proven that, and I don't think he's going to.
And it's not a great free agent class, but the part where you have to stay true to your board is everybody, when you're talking about the draft, and Matt, you know this, you've been around enough people. If they're talking about two blue chip prospects, they're talking about Jalen Carter and Will Anderson up top. They're essentially dismissing everybody else, and there is a gap. But how Ryan Poles and Ian Cunningham may have another blue chip guy. They may have, like I said, it could be, I'm not saying that I'm there, but they may be very high on Paris Johnson, and they can move down and bring in an offensive tackle to surround and make your quarterback, make your offensive line room better. It's all gonna depend on how they have it. I mean, I know everybody's been talking to me. The sleeping giant about trading up is Carolina. I think that they're ripe with the assets to move up, and they got Frank Reich in there, and he's going to be able to handpick his own young quarterback. And I think that that's the team, and they got some young assets to go with the ammo draft wise to come up.
Listen, if it were me, I would definitely get Anderson. I would definitely take the picks you have, and understand this. This is not a class where I would be drafting a wide receiver in the first round.
No,
so
totally.
You don't need a running back, really. I don't think, at least not in the early rounds. You can get one later, but this is a class. I know you've got Cole Kmet, and there's promise with Cole Kmet, and he's a solid all-around player. But I'm going to tell you, in the second round, you can probably get a guy out of Utah by the name of Dalton Kincaid. And I know that people like Michael Mayer, and I think Michael Mayer is an excellent player. So I wouldn't lose my mind if the Bears said, look, he's down the road, let's take him. We love our Notre Dame players. Fine. But Dalton Kincaid is a promising blocker, not as polished as Mayer, but you don't need him to be if you got Komet blocking. What you do is...
He said the same thing about Greg Olsen when he came out, that he couldn't block.
Yeah.
Nobody cared.
Dalton Kincaid can block. He can't block great right now, but he will get better. But what he can do is catch the fuck out of the football in a way where you can match him up. He is the closest thing to Travis Kelce that I've seen since I watched Travis Kelce.
Wow.
He's a contested catch guy. He is someone that runs good routes. He breaks tackles consistently in the open field. He makes people miss in the open field. And I think to me, he has a grade that rivaled the kid out of Atlanta, Kyle Pitts, in terms of what I saw right now for me.
Unless that dragon was fucking a goat.
Draft Dr. Phil and the smartest man.
Keeping it 100.
Chicago's trading up.
100.
Yes! What? Oh here it is! Just recorded.
The tape never lies.
Other people drop off, but we still keep.
You'll never know how good your football team's going to be until you play with maximum effort. Keeping it 100.
Open competition over the North and never give it back.
Smartest man.
My Chicago Bears select Justin Fields, quarterback, Ohio State.
Guess who's back? The two dudes that kept it real. Dynamic duo that you love, the smartest man and Dr. Phil. Breaking down the film, never a problem, kick it straight. Most shows focus on stats, we focus on the tape. We keeping it 100, never running east to west. We coming with that truth, cause that's what our fans expect. Cut off the freaking anchor, forward to be free. But don't you worry, Shane's got the dumbest tweets. It ain't no secret, Phil and Shane got some haters. But now they're all stuck like the Jew and now and later. Debaters, frauds get kicked like Coach Tabor. Cuts had to be made, we added a barber moderator. Up and down, boys got you double checking. Sad sacks scrolling like a fool drunk texting. Flexing on the truth cause you know they'll never change. Real, recognize real, that's what you get with Phil and Shane. What's the name? We do when we're breaking down the Bears. Fuck a play or a captain, all of the unfair. The tape never lies. The truth, you see, we laugh, we analyze, so there's no babies like Maybelline. Straight to the truth with acumen and facts. We got a sad nerd, but he's not just giving nerd stats. Car crash, big impact like Trick Sack. Every Wednesday night you got the smartest man and Phil back. Now we know you're smiling like a fat kid with fun dip. We're back better than ever and we keeping it 100.
Keep it 100.
Draft Dr. Phil and the smartest man.
Justin Fields gets outside the pocket, puts that ball perfectly where only Mooney can get it.
1 point,
2 feet.
Draft Dr. Phil and the smartest man.
Keeping it 100, baby.
keeping it 100.
Draft Dr. Phil and the smartest man.
Keeping it 100, baby.
Keep it 100.
Keeping it 100.
Birds never lie. Yeah, exactly.
Yo, what is up, TTNL family? We back another Wednesday night. We got a fun show for y'all. We got Dan Wiederer joining us from the Chicago Tribune. But let's be real, y'all not here to see me. We're gonna bring in the stars of the show. We got Shane, the smartest man.
Hey.
And Draft Dr. Phil.
What up? Cherie.
She does. She smokes Claude in these opens. Her
really
timing
does.
is impeccable.
Aww.
Like
Timing is perfect. It's like right on the money.
Aww.
When
We're
we
gonna
get our
bring-
new sponsor, we'll have you do the reads again on the money.
Yeah, we're gonna have to look into some more people.
I think Claude's got what, maybe 2 or 3 right, and since he started on time.
Yeah, never.
as perfect as that was. If we had the ability, I'm sure Ivan could go back, just clip the intro of her coming on, and just let's give it a highlight.
Cherie versus Claude. Yeah,
because it's honestly on time. I don't understand how Claudio's so late in here.
Yeah, I don't get it either. It's probably because Cherie's wearing a visor.
Probably is. Speaking of visors, finally, I was right again.
Clay, do you have your clip?
I have to pull a clip.
All right.
I didn't know we were going to this so early.
Oh my God! Steph told me you were practically touching yourself, waiting to get this right out of
the. They going around now.
Laid that one up there for Phil, and he fucking knocked it out of the park like a big boy. Poor cars.
At TTNL, we have breaking news. Again, I took so much heat on this. So that's the only reason why we're going to break the news.
Breaking news. The tape never lies. Network breaking news.
I fucked your mom. A scientific fact that no quarterback that's wearing a visor has ever won a Super Bowl. Now, we might be very wrong about this because by the time this airs,
yeah,
I never thought about that. Wears a visor.
Yeah, I mean, if they win Sunday, then he'll be the first.
Yeah, has that ever occurred to you though? That you're going against tradition here.
That's actually a great point. I've never thought of that before.
Yeah. So, and when you wear a visor, like, let's just be honest, you're not doing it for any reason other than you look really fucking cool, right?
And I mean, I have gotten poked in the eye a few times, but mostly it's a swag.
Yeah, right, exactly. Everyone who's ever played Madden is like visor.
Got to put the visor, yeah.
You guys know the tape never lies.
There it is. The man himself, the smoking gun. So I will accept Cash App, Shane, from some of these hater fans that were attacking me.
All right, but so you're doing your victory lap right now? Is that what we're doing?
No, that was it. I'm glad everybody thought it was some sort of conspiracy.
All right, so listen.
Yeah.
If we go back to your original premise.
My original premise is, as a coach, I tell him to take off.
Because that's why he was not seeing the field.
I still believe that it, and I will stay to this and state this.
So what would be?
I think it's a 1 second disadvantage.
So Jalen Hurts would have passed for 600 yards and 12 touchdowns in the Super Bowl with his clear visor.
Maybe.
No visor.
I just think that you need a visor as a quarterback. I've always stayed.
Can you clip that? Because he said you need a visor. Ivan, can you clip that?
Yeah,
I don't think you need.
You said you need it. Clip that, Ivan. We need that for later.
I don't need that. All I know is if I was on the other side of this and was against and pro visor, that I would be on here saying, you know what, I was wrong.
Yeah, but you're
it just for the look is always what I said. Always.
Your original premise was that's why he's playing bad, though. It wasn't about the swag. You said you were told it was because it was swag, right?
And I was right?
No, that's what you were told, right? It wasn't your original thought.
Yes, it was. It was my original thought because
you were told by two.
After I checked. I'm like, there's no way. I've never heard of epilepsy. So I talked to a couple players. I've never heard of epilepsy with a shield being held.
But that is also documented that it's a real thing.
It's not. It's been debunked. It is.
Who's it been debunked by? Barstool?
Not Barstool. It was debunked by a doctor saying there's no showcase that it does or doesn't. So it's like a middle or gray area.
So then that means that it hasn't been debunked. That means that nobody truly knows then, right?
Okay, no one truly knows.
But I do know they've created visors.
That I was right that it was just about his swag, and
that wasn't the original fight. The original fight was you saying that he's playing bad because he's wearing a visor.
I said, as a coach, take your fucking swag and put it in the locker room. And I believe, for the record, a half a second more time he'll be able to have based on shields, because glares and interference and what you see as a quarterback. Now, how Jalen Hurts, what he threw for, is Jalen Hurts a perfect product? I don't know. But it is.
No, I don't think anybody's saying that, but it goes against your theory, so it doesn't hold water.
For the record of truth, I don't lie.
I'm not saying
I said it was about swag. I believe that. Then you guys brought this medical thing into play. Wrong.
Because he has epilepsy.
It's not for
and I don't think he was ever going to go on Barstool with Jersey Jerry and talk about epilepsy
either. Wouldn't say, hey, I do it for a medical.
No, I think if somebody asked him specifically about epilepsy, he may have a different take on it. Probably not the right forum.
Right. He's telling you it's about swag right there. That's why when he comes out and he's wearing a dark shield, warming up, he's wearing a different
So what do you think Justin would say that I think that you're taking a second off your reaction time because you're wearing a...
If I was the coach, he wouldn't wear the shield. I would help himself and be like, listen.
I mean, it fucked A.J. Brown up, too, as a wide receiver. He had his best years.
Wide receiver is difficult as well.
Oh, I know it is. But, I mean, it obviously 1,400 yards. He probably could have had 3,800 if he had no visor.
Listen, no quarterback has won the Super Bowl still wearing a shield.
Right, but that's how many quarterbacks. You don't think the more and more of the current quarterbacks that get into the league, these guys that are all about swag, that you're going to see more and more visors?
Take the swag out of your game. Help yourself. I'm just telling you guys. I'm serious. When I went after we talked and I asked a couple players, they said it was just about swag, and I shared that with you. That is it. Take it off. And if you see the end of the interview, and I didn't put all of that in there.
Give me some fucking names. Give this kid 2 fucking games.
If you look at the end of there, he's like, maybe I will not wear it next year. So we'll see. That's what I said to Cars when Cars was trying to. No, he took it off in the 49ers game, which, by the way, he won. One of our biggest wins, because it's pouring out. And it's
that wasn't normal pouring. That was a fucking monsoon.
I'm just saying, Shane.
Well, there's a massive difference between raining and a fucking monsoon. There's 4 feet of water on top of the fucking field.
Doesn't lie. He just said it's about the swag.
Nobody's all right. So you were right on that part.
Can you say that maybe I'd be right that this would help improve his visual ability to see and anticipate a little bit?
Well, it's hard for me to say that when I just watched the Super Bowl and the guy went fucking crazy and could have been the first player to ever get MVP on a losing team. Oh yeah, and he had a visor, throwing to a wide receiver that wore a dark visor. It's just I don't know if I'm buying that part of it. You win the swag 100%. I'll bow down. Here's your victory lap. Go ahead, take it.
Listen, I don't all I do is speak my truth. My truth is always going to be that. When a player, I'm not here to make friends. There's certain people like Deion Sanders pulls fingernails on a chalkboard when I see some of the way he coaches. People love Deion. All I'm saying,
there's a good question for you from Ryan.
There's certain things I don't like about it. And if
you're
a
talking
player is
scientific evidence, there is none saying that there's a delay in your processing speed with a visor.
I have 150% chance of showing delayed reaction time because of blurred vision. It's like driving at night and it's drizzling or lightly spring, and you have to put the wipers on. It affects you. Some people have to take off sunglasses when they're driving, even if it's sunny.
Does it affect you if you don't put the wipers on?
Of course.
And it's raining? Of course, yeah.
Of course. Even with the wipers on, I'm saying it's affecting you.
I'm
just telling you, blurred, any kind of hindrance in front of you.
I don't think it's. I think
as the quarterback.
I don't think blurred.
Receiver. I played receiver. I had to take it off because in rainy or hot, like muggy condition, it started to fog up. But I don't get the anger of being wrong when you guys are clearly wrong and I was right.
I'm not angry at
you.
anything.
I'm talking to some people in the chat.
No, the
guy just went on there. Do we have to
trying to
watch
win?
It again?
No, you're trying to win two different arguments based on swag.
If
you were
he's
right
just
about the
wearing
swag.
it for swag, get it off and see how you perform without it. I think how many players have won a Super Bowl without a shield?
But Phil, that's like saying that
40. How many Super Bowls? 52. Okay, all of them had no shield.
But that means so. Three African American quarterbacks have won the Super Bowl. So are you going to base moving forward on that, on anything? It doesn't make any sense, Phil.
What is that?
You're saying that no player has worn a visor that's won the Super Bowl, but I mean
what is the black quarterbacks?
I'm just saying 3 African American quarterbacks have won a Super Bowl. Is that going to prevent you from drafting an African American quarterback? It's a dumb fucking stat. It's a dumb stat.
It's a stat. It doesn't even matter, that stat, because there's a whole different rationale to that.
But I'm not
in the black quarterback for years, which prevented that. It had nothing to do with putting swag.
How many players in the Super Bowl have worn visors?
I don't know. How many quarterbacks? That's it. That's all I'm talking about.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not saying.
I mean, LaDainian Tomlinson,
goddamn shield on.
LaDainian Tomlinson wore a dark visor as a running back.
I have never
he was horrible.
Manipulating the story.
I'm not manipulating
never once
anything.
Said any other position.
You don't have any concrete evidence for what you're saying, Phil. None. Just like I don't. But that's what you're saying. Everything is. You're saying you have what?
The swag in my pocket. He admitted
the swag is fine. All right, you win that. That's fine. Your visor theory you have no evidence towards that. None.
Okay.
Just like I don't. That's the thing.
I don't give 2 fucks about anybody other than quarterbacks. If my center wants to wear a visor, it's not going to affect him. If a receiver feels comfortable wearing a visor, that's fine. I have no problem.
Jalen Hurts then.
It's anticipating the throw and seeing a field.
He finished second in MVP voting.
52.5.
And he wore a visor.
That's it.
All right, well, explain Jalen Hurts then. Like I said,
I can't. Good for him. He wears a visor.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think it makes.
Okay, but Jalen Hurts is proven what he's done. Justin is still struggling.
Oh wait, he did have that big fumble. So that was probably from the visor. Yeah, I did forget about that.
Cars said that might have happened too. Ryan Cox said that he was wiping his visor. The moisture on his hand caused him to fumble.
Jeff, you're right. I never wore a visor, and you never wore one in the NFL or college football either. So get back to me when you did that. Thanks.
A scientific fact that no quarterback that's wearing a visor has ever won a Super Bowl. Now, we might be very wrong about this because by the time this airs,
really,
I
never thought about
Hurts wears a visor.
Yeah, I mean, if they win Sunday, then he'll be the first.
Yeah, has that ever occurred to you though? That you're going against tradition here.
That's actually a great point. I've never thought of that before.
Yeah. So, and when you wear a visor, like, let's just be honest, you're not doing it for any reason other than you look really fucking cool, right?
And I mean, I have gotten poked in the eye a few times, but mostly it's a swag.
Yeah, right, exactly. Everyone's ever.
It's just the swag.
So, bottom line, He admits that he wears it for swag.
The epilepsy
supporting evidence
comments of Chris Sand, everyone attacked. They painted me into this corner and flipped the narrative on that. I had nothing.
But it's an actual thing.
If a doctor had advised him he's got to wear this 100%, I said I'd do that. I believe, based on my experience in this game of football, that it's going to affect the quarterback position. Whether Jalen Hurts is 1 out of 101, that's fine. I believe Justin would be better off without his visor and allow him to see the field and do it like that.
Do you know why players wear black visors?
To block the sun?
No, they have to have a medical condition, and it has to be approved by a doctor in the NFL to wear a black visor.
Well, I've heard that anybody could wear a black visor.
Not true. 100% not true.
Wear a black visor.
100% not true. Quarterbacks can't. It's illegal.
Well, I know they can't wear a black visor in high school because you can get a concussion and they want to be able to see the.
You have to have medical clearance for a black visor in the NFL.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there is no black visor for your quarterback, and Jalen Hurts doesn't wear a black visor.
No, I'm just saying visor in general. Yeah, you can wear a clear visor, but if you want to wear a dark visor, you have to have a medical clearance because it helps them.
The matter remains.
It helps them with the lights.
The fact of the matter remains, swag. That's it. Alex Acevedo, swag. I think the same things that I've always thought. The numbers don't lie either here.
Okay. So we settled that. About this stadium.
No quarterback has won a Super Bowl. It still stands. I didn't even know that stat. I didn't think about it. It wasn't even in my repertoire until I saw these two talk about Barstool. Well, ask Dan what he thinks about visors.
That wasn't a pre-approved question.
I didn't have to pre-approve it. I will take my bows. I got a lot of DMs, people sending me.
You did? I got DMs from people I've never heard from. I'm like, oh my God. Shit on Twitter.
I just can't believe you can't say my boy was right.
I did.
I was wrong.
Cherie, have I not said it 15 times that he was right about the swag?
You did, but you specified the swag.
Yeah, you just
swag. You're not right about the clear visor part because you have no evidence. You have zero evidence other than your thought. You have your thought just like I have my thought.
If he's wearing it for swag, can he take it off?
Sure, he could. But you're saying that it's affecting his playing ability.
I believe it does have an effect. It slows you down a little bit in your progressions. I think it has that effect on him. I really do.
Yeah. All right. That's why I said that's why I wanted you to explain Jalen Hurts, but we can't.
Well, I can't explain how someone wins the Powerball either. There's always that one against.
So Jalen's an outlier.
He is.
Okay.
But he also lost.
Yeah.
So the record continues. Until a visor-wearing quarterback wins, you should not talk about visors. Only I should talk about visors. That's it. Justin admitted it. I now can take my lad that I was right. And
we're gonna have to put visors.
It had nothing to do with a medical thing. That's it.
But it can.
But it doesn't in this case. That's
well, Justin, he wore it for swag, right?
So for Phil's point, I can say, would it hurt him to not do it? Like to just see if he can play better without it.
No, nobody's saying that.
So
if it's about swag and I'm a coach, get it off.
Yeah.
He's already struggled. His biggest struggle is his anticipation and his progression.
Yeah, try it. He said he said that he might, so we'll see what happens.
That's what I'm hoping. We'll talk about it with our guests coming up and a lot more.
Please don't.
And all of you who We've talked about this all year. I've been buried with jokes, and you think I'm gonna let this go tonight? You must be talking to the wrong guy. Go watch another fucking show. Please. Stop beating a dead horse already, JP. No. What are we gonna talk about? The fact that Ted Phillips is gone again for 100th time? Anyway, let's get to our guy. I'm super excited because the last time I was able to talk to him, but his biggest critic is here on the show with him, and I can't wait. I might just shut up.
I'm not a critic.
Oh, yes, you are.
No, I'm not a critic.
Criticizing me. You criticize everybody. Even Ivan's shaking his head. Let's bring him out here the way we do. You know him from the Chicago Tribune. Some of you get so fired up with him, you DM me about it. I'm like, Dan doesn't return my DMs. I can't tell him. I don't know what's going on. We got to get this figured out. Here he is from the Tribune. You hear him on ESPN 1000. The great, arguably great for some of you, Dan Wiederer.
This guy has seen it all when it comes to sports. He's an award-winning sports writer at the Chicago Tribune and a featured on-air analyst for ESPN 1000 and WGN. He covers the Chicago Bears and the NFL like nobody else does. Bears fans, let's give this guy a proper welcome as he makes his TTNL Network debut. It's been a long, winding journey from Tobacco Road to Hallis Hall. Let's give it up for Dan Wiederer.
There he is.
Not the debut. We got to update his intro.
You got to alleviate those words in it. You know?
It's his debut with me here. I was on vacation. I was down in Tobacco Road.
Dan.
Oh, is he muted?
Yeah, he's muted on his side, Dan. It says, I can't unmute you. I don't know why. I didn't do it. Shane probably did it.
No, Shane didn't do it.
There.
Is he wearing a visor?
Can we hear him? No, we can't hear him. Shit.
Maybe bounce out and bounce back in and see if
what about now? We got
you. We got you.
I think Milkshake Mike is going to have a coronary if I talk about Justin Fields' swag visor one more time.
What's up? How you guys doing?
We're excited to have you.
Yeah, I had a great time the last time I was here, and I hope it's just as good and maybe twice as good now that we've got more company to share.
Yeah, I'm back. I was bummed that I missed the first one, Dan. I wanted to say to you, not to start off this way, but you had sent me a little bit of advice on Twitter when you lost your dad there. My son was fighting the same fight, and you gave me a little bit of advice. So I always cherish that advice that you gave me. He was able to win his fight, and I just wanted to thank you face to face for that, because it meant a lot. You didn't have to do it, but you did. So I definitely appreciate that.
Listen, you're more than welcome. I'm extremely pleased to hear that the battle's going well on your end and that you guys are on the right side of it. That's terrific.
Yep, never a fun one, and never one that you want to go through with your 10-year-old son. But yeah, we came out the victors, so we're enjoying getting back to some normalcy and letting him be a kid. So that's the great part.
It's a big deal. My oldest is also 10. He's bounding in the door from basketball practice as we speak. So I told Chris coming on, there's going to be some house chaos in the background at times here. If you hear some extra noise, that's what it is.
We all have it.
I got twin 9-year-old boys. So you know, my teenage daughter's going out on a date tonight. So there's all noise going on.
And I have a lunatic almost 2-year-old. So I know that all too well.
I've got one of those that's 4. So
listen, it's exciting to get you on the air this season above itself, Dan. If you had to describe it in one word, I think we start there with you because it's a season like no other.
Yeah.
What would you describe it as?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm picking one word, I'm putting it down as confusing, because it was a season that had a lot of electricity, a lot of hope attached, and yet it was a 14-loss franchise record-breaking season. They lost 10 games in a row.
10.
You know, that win on Monday night in New England, it felt like a statement victory in the moment. It was the last victory of the season.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like mind-blowing when you think back to it. You know, it's a week before Halloween and they don't win again. And so you've got all this hope and potential attached to the flashes that Justin showed, and then you have 14 losses and the number one pick and a lot of ground to make up to become a realistic contender again.
Dan, you brought up the New England game, and I just had this conversation with Greg Braggs just a few hours ago today, specifically talking about the New England game. Everything kind of seemed to come to a head. Everybody going into that game, you know, really gave the Bears no chance. And you watch it and you're like, wow, this we did not expect this at all. And then boom, you see the Claypool trade right after that. Do you think, I know everything's going around and I am not a believer that the Bears should or will trade Justin. I think that they're all in on him. I think they're moving forward with him as they should. But do you think that was kind of the topper for this regime, that game kind of cementing the fact for them that this is what we wanted to see? And then they, you know, we got to make a move. We got to get him a guy to see even more.
Well, so there's two parts to that, Shane, because I think, like, I vividly remember walking down from the press box to the locker room alongside Ryan Poles after that game, and to feel the juice that he had because of the way they played. They were legitimately at a spot at that point in the season where they thought they could maybe tap into something and potentially become one of these teams that's like the surprise team that's hanging around into December, getting toward Christmas, still in contention. And then they get the opportunity to trade Robert Quinn pretty much the next day. And that was the first domino to go. And then the next week, it's the combination of trading Roquan and acquiring Chase Claypool. And so you're trying to do two different things at once, which was at the time trying to stay competitive within the 2022 season, while also from the seat of Ryan Poles, trying to make sure that you put yourself in position to have a long-term run. One of the things I've appreciated about Ryan in his year plus on the job is he really seems to, on a everyday basis, not forget the long view of this. He's been very consistent in saying, I don't want to win 1 year and then drop off. Bears fans know that experience all too well. 2001, 05, 06, 10, 18, and then it's a dramatic drop off. So he's trying to build something like they have in Kansas City, where you're in the playoffs every year and you're a factor every year, and you're trying to do that. And so to build a roster, you got to do different things. He got to a point there, and the Claypool trade's its own sort of subplot for 2023, because they saw what was going to be available to them in free agency on the free agent market, 3 weeks from now. And they're like, man, that's not real impressive. So if we're going to try to get Justin a game-changing playmaker, why don't we pull this trigger now and make that deal? Now, look, in the long run, it ends up costing you the equivalent of a first-round pick, because it's number 32 overall in April's draft that they sent to Pittsburgh for Claypool. And then you got a guy whose time here, I had never had grand expectations for what that end of the season would look like, but he didn't produce. He was hurt, had a couple moments that were, like hinting at some diva tendencies that you go, whoa, hold on a minute. And so now you're in this sort of, I don't want to call it a bind, but it's close to a bind, because now you've got to see that through in 2023. And you've got to try to figure out what you've got in-house with Mooney and Claypool before you invest a whole lot else monetarily in other receivers.
So real quick, Phil, I just want to jump in. I just want to play off of that. I guess I should have phrased it a little bit different. Dan, do you think they would have made the Claypool trade if they didn't have full belief in Justin Fields as their quarterback moving forward?
No. I mean, you're right. Like, I think that's an addition that's made because you know that you need to get your guy some level of game-changing help to see where he goes. And that's why I've been very consistent with, like, they have to do their homework during the pre-draft process and everything else and figure out what these other quarterbacks are like. But Justin has shown so much in 2 years from a work ethic standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, from a playmaking standpoint, from a investment standpoint, where you got to see this through. Nobody knows better than Chicago Bears fans how difficult it is to even reach this stage of the development of a quarterback. And so when you get here, now is not the time to pull the cord and go in a different direction just because you're tempted to see something else, unless that guy is, in your mind, a can't miss Hall of Famer. You see this through with Justin for at least one more season. And if you get to this point next year and you've still got some questions, well, now you figure out what your contingency plans are. And that's going to be a big deal. And I think that's why this year, among like 30 reasons why the calendar year of 2023 is going to be one we look back on and go, this is an absolutely historic year one way or the other in terms of where this franchise goes.
Now you're kind of answering as I was going to ask this question about, because it's not a fair assessment of Justin based on the talent they had out there. You can agree to that, right? So now, is it forcing your hand here with the first overall pick to accumulate draft capital, possible veteran player, whether it be a wide receiver, defensive lineman, to help set yourself up for what you're talking about, assessing Justin appropriately, but also getting another first-round pick in next year's draft to cover your ass if Justin isn't the guy because Ryan Poles has no loyalty to him. So
correct. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, it's honestly not a bad thing that he doesn't have loyalty to him because he can see it through sober eyes. And that may have been a detriment to the previous regime, particularly with Ryan Pace, who believed so strongly in Mitch Trubisky that he felt that compelled on draft night to trade up. And so then you want to make it work. You want to make it work. You want to make it work. And you see things that maybe aren't there. With Ryan, I think, it's that view long-term that's there. And I hear a lot from people within the league that say, if they make this trade, if they trade back out of number one and they're trying to get that gift basket worth of picks to come back to them, don't be surprised if they ask for more stuff in 2024, because what that 2024 draft capital gives you is flexibility. And so if you get to December of this next year and you go, man, like Justin just truly isn't getting it in terms of pocket passing and he's not getting over the hurdles and he's not making the strides that we want him to see, well, now you got to have some ammunition to get in the sweepstakes for Caleb Williams or Drake May, which are the two guys right now that are turning heads in the league and in terms of quarterbacks in next year's draft that could be worth, rolling the dice on and going all in on. And if you're Ryan Poles, that's when your clock truly starts, when you make the next decision on a quarterback, and that next decision on a quarterback might be signing Justin to a long-term extension. But whenever you make that decision, that's when your egg timer turns over and now it's time to produce and roll and get some results.
So free agency opens, obviously everybody knows, next month, and it's going to be, the Bears have that. I think a lot of the fans don't understand the difference between the cash floor and then the cap, because there's obviously a big difference. The Bears have to spend a lot of cash to meet that floor. That's the difference. But it's really, that part of it's not as hard because it includes extensions and stuff like that. But Dan, day one, let's say, how do you, in Dan Wiederer's, assumption here, best guess, how do you think that the Bears attack this? Do you think that they're going to come out and they're going to have a very definitive, strike quick plan with who they want? Or do you think it's going to be a lot more calculated and they're going to sit back?
I'd say it's a combination. I really do think it'll be a combination because right now what happens, like the cap went up. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but I think it went up to like 224 million around the league. And so that boost in cap helps everybody. So now all of a sudden, some of these guys you've had on your free agency board for months may re-sign with the team they're with, or maybe franchise, like Deron Payne in Washington, a guy who everybody agrees would fit great here and be one of those interior game wreckers that you want to rebuild on defense. He may not get to the free agent market. And so then if he's your day one strike big guy and he comes off the board, well, now you have to take that breath, not get sort of anxious and urgent and be disciplined and be calculated. And just because you have the money to spend doesn't mean you should overspend, because that's where you get into trouble. And so the operative word for me for Ryan Poles going into this free agency stretch is discipline. It's just making sure that you don't feel like this is my only chance to strike it big just because we've talked for 4 months about how much salary cap space you have. So there's that part of things. And so, but look, like I think there's an awareness inside the building that interior, both sides of the ball, offensive line, defensive line, they're deficient across the board. And they better find some absolute difference-making starters wherever they can. You want to strike hard in free agency if you can. You want to buy flexibility so that when you go into the draft, you don't feel so needy that you've got to, reach and move around and do things that feel a little desperate. And so it's just playing those games. There's a lot of games to play. It's fascinating. 2 weeks from now, I'm going to be in Indianapolis for the Combine. And that may be one of the most under the radar, behind the scenes weeks of Bears history because of all the conversations that Ryan Poles is going to have about the quarterbacks who are there working out, the agents and the free agents that are going to be on the market, talking through all these different trade possibilities with, opposing GMs. There's so much work that Ryan and his staff have to get done in Indy. And we're going to emerge from that and go, holy cow, like this is a week where we learn a lot about the direction. And then obviously that direction will play out when we get to March 13th. And then again, the last weekend of April.
So Jason Lockenfora comes out tonight, sends out this message that he's talking to all these GMs. The Bears are in the business of trading Justin Fields. Now, we could believe whatever we want in this lying season, I call it, right? Whatever we want. But aren't the Bears kind of trapped in having not only the pressure of having to spend, because they're way below the cap spending. I don't know the numbers, but they have to spend at least $95 million to get to where, or $165 million they have to spend, how they do it, whatever. But aren't they, in order to assess this quarterback, if you're keeping Justin Fields, we're saying, and not going to trade him or draft Bryce Young and trade or whatever they're doing, you have to spend the money in order to properly assess. And just like you said, you're so, just desperate inside on both sides of the trenches that you can't get an appropriate analysis of this young football player. And he's running, and that's where he's making his bread and butter. So it's like you're so negligent right now that you have to spend this money.
Well, look, like you have to give Justin a fair chance if you're doing your job right. And a fair chance means giving him some comfort in the pocket so that the bad habits don't turn into, lifelong flaws. And so like what you need to do there is solidify an offensive line so that you can accurately gauge whether Justin just doesn't have pocket instincts and pocket presence and pocket calm, or if you just don't have things around him that provide some of that to make the plays happen from within there. So they just have to solidify things. Now, I've been sort of emphatic in saying, if you're expecting them to become the Eagles this next season, where they've got this relentless defense that allows you to stay in every single game, where you have an offensive line that's as sturdy as anything we've seen in the league, where you have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith on your side, you're not getting that. You're not getting that going into the 2023 season. And so you have to be realistic about, how many gains you can make, but you have to make some gains so that Justin has a chance to continue his development. And so there's just, to me, there's so much optimism in the building in terms of how much work he puts in and how much ability he has left in him to elevate guys around him, that you want to give him a fair chance in 2023 to show you who he is as a quarterback. I think you guys would agree with this, that if he stays healthy, we'll get to the end of the 2023 season and he'll have 40 plus starts on his career resume. Yeah. That will eliminate a whole lot of gray area in terms of who we think he is as a quarterback, who he actually is as a quarterback. And the conversations will become less confusing. It'll be like, we've got 41, 42 starts here to assess. And there's a lot in that body of work to tell us exactly who he is and who he's going to be.
We have to do that. I totally agree. I think fans need to hear that. It's not Dan being hard on Justin or anything.
They have so much money available to. I mean, they can go out and sign their top 3 free agents and still, I believe, have the most money available. That's, I mean, that's
they
how
have to spend it.
it's kind of
well, you're in the game, and you know, and then you've got guys in house that you have to figure out what to do with. You know, the COVID class that I call them, like the Mooney, Komet, Jalen Johnsons that are up for extensions now. You have to figure out how much you value them, and you know, now's a good time. You know, heading into the summer to figure out where that price range is and go in. You know, and reward some of those guys that have been with you for a while and giving you what you've asked of them. It's going to be really interesting to watch this roster come together because we all know there's holes all over it right now, and you've got to figure out a way to patch those up in a way that gives you a chance. I mean, a realistic ceiling for the 2023 Bears is, you know, can you be in the hunt graphic around Christmas time, you know, and not just an afterthought, you know, and it's not hard to stay in that graphic anymore. They keep, teams are 3 games below 500 in December, and you're still in that graphic. So just stay in that graphic until December, and then we'll figure it out.
Yeah, and I think that's a trap that a lot of people fall into. Like you brought up Philly. I don't think, you know, fans that are just, I don't know if you want to call them fair weather fans or not really into all the ins and outs like we are, you know, maybe expecting them to be Philly. That's obviously not realistic like you're talking about, but you don't have to look very far back to look at Jacksonville. And I don't think that is that far of a stretch for them to become that team. Because I think, obviously, there's a ton of holes, but I still maintain, Dan, you've been around this a long, long time, and you've been around a lot of shitty football for a long time here in Chicago. We've never seen this all come together. Like Justin Fields was always is the type of guy that, as a Bears fan or an analyst, you're like, man, why can't we get that guy? Or why can't we have the most money available in the NFL? Why can't we have the number one pick? And they have it all right now. And it's so unbearable. Ted is fucking gone soon.
That's the biggest.
We're getting a new stadium that they closed. They closed on, but it's just, doesn't it feel different?
Well, so two things to this point. Number one, a couple of my longtime contacts in the league have both in the last week made the same point that you've made. You've seen a lot of shitty football during your time covering the league, and I was like, stop reminding me. Like, I'd like to be known at some point of the guy that was like chronicling the rise to the top, and wrote the book about how the Lombardi Trophy wound up, back at Hallis Hall, and hopefully we'll get there. But for me, like from the chair I sit in, this 2023 season is awesomely compelling because of all the things you mentioned. Kevin Warren comes in the building. Like, I have experience with Kevin from my time in Minnesota, and he, in my opinion, is everything that has been missing from Hallis Hall in terms of the unwillingness to settle, the intolerance of complacency, the think big dreams. Along with that, you've got this 326-acre property in Arlington Heights where you have the chance to build a fantasy land of football greatness that brings all these different events to the suburbs here in Chicago, and it elevates the profile of who the Bears are. You've got Justin and this pivotal moment in his career. You've got all this money to spend in free agency. You got the number one pick in the draft that allows you to do whatever you want there. If you want to use it, pick a player. If you want to collect a draft pick basket, a gift basket that you get to trading it to Indy or Houston or Carolina or wherever else, go for it. And so the eventfulness of these next 12 months it's amazingly compelling. Whether it turns out successful or if it turns out a failure, it's 100% compelling. And to me, there's like a juice that comes with that, because there's just there will be no boredom. There will be no boredom within the walls of 2023.
Is there going to be a lunch with Larry building at the New Arlington Park? Do you know?
It may be its own restaurant, Shane, to be honest with you. Maybe like lunch with Larry. He has his own little, food hall there where you can go in there and you don't even need to do it over the compuper. You just ask
the players if they like football, hard-hitting questions like that.
Have you ever heard the Pernell McPhee, Larry Mayer story?
I don't remember if I have.
Maybe, but
this is a favorite of guys on the beat. Pernell was relatively new to Chicago. I think it was sometime in his first season, and Larry came in the locker room during an open locker room session, and it clicked in Pernell's mind that the guy I'm staring at, walking towards me, is the guy I see on my computer screen asking for questions about the Bears on Lunch with Larry. And Pernell just leaned back in his locker stall. There were like four of us around. He goes, Oh my fucking God. Your lunch with Larry.
Did Larry go, do you want my autograph?
Oh, Dan doesn't know that.
He's literally starstruck. Pernell McPhee
That's
was
awesome.
starstruck by lunch with Larry.
That's great.
I saw Larry. He looked at me, knew who I was, and ignored me. That's my lunch with Larry story. I was looking for you, Dan, to shake your hand when I was out there at Dallas. But I have this question for you. You look at this wide receiver core here. Do you think the Bears are going to be jumping in free agency, or do you think because of the amount of cap space they have that you could see one of these blockbuster deals? Obviously, when you go down the list of young quarterbacks, their growth is transitioning. A.J. Brown, big trade. He's a number one wide receiver. And you can go down the list of them. Do you think that there's an opportunity for the Bears to make a trade for a big-time number one wide receiver? Is that their goal, or do you think they're going to hit that position in free agency?
Yeah, so I think the problem is they already made that trade.
Oh, really?
And that's part of the problem that we're dealing with here. And when you talk to people around the league, you pushed your chips in on Chase Claypool, and so now you can't get yourself in a position where you're going to have to pay 3 of them, right? Because they love Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney's going to get an extension. He's not going to get number one money, but he will get an extension and he will be paid. Now, if you go out and you trade for T. Higgins, you're basically saying, sorry, Chase, we're punting on you after 8 games, right? And that would not necessarily be a bad move in my decision, but it would reflect on what you did this last October, November, whenever it was to go and get Chase Claypool. So I think they're sort of stuck with what they have in house plus whatever they can draft in 2023 in April. You can sign, another number 3 in free agency. You can add to the depth there. You can add a little bit of talent there, but I don't think you're adding another headliner outside of the draft this offseason. And so at that point, you're just left to play it out, and you're left for Justin to elevate the guys that are in house. And then you're left to revisit the discussion, at this time next year, whether, do you want to pay Chase Claypool to keep him around? And right now, I mean, I'm sure you guys would agree from what you saw in this limited period for the last 2 months of the season, there's nothing there that says must have, this guy has to be a core piece of your next championship team. And so you've just got to figure some things out. And I think you're kind of hamstrung a little bit from making another one of those blockbuster deals because of that.
Would the blockbuster one down, whether it be to Colts, whatever combination, now that gives you that extra, so then you see a draft day trade for a vet. I'm looking at D Hop or Evans, somebody that's going to come in here, give Justin that giant catch radius, that go up and get the dog. We have no dogs. Darnell Mooney is 178 pound. Probably he's your most dog. I can't believe what he does on tape physically for his size, but he is that size. So physics kind of interferes with what he could do. But as far as getting that number one receiver, could that big trade down be a part of this chess game where they have to get Justin and Carey too? Claypool is an incomplete.
Yeah.
Because of what he you
make the best man win.
Best man stays.
Competition breeds success, like they all say. Well, I think what's interesting, and I don't think Cincinnati will it's going to be interesting.
Right.
You look at T. Higgins and you compare it to he's not AJ Brown, but you look at the age, it's similar. He's got the same agent as Ryan Poles, same agent as Justin Fields, same agent as Matt Eberflus, and he wants to be paid. So I think that something could potentially come to a head there. And even like what you're saying, Dan, I think Claypool isn't incomplete, but the Bears are so desperate. I don't think even that can, if that is available to them, it obviously is not going to involve the number one pick or anything like that. It's going to be like Phil said, AJ Brown was draft day. You go down, you accumulate some extra picks, and maybe they want to vet offensive lineman like Cody Whitehair. Who knows? You know, I mean, Cincinnati's in win now mode. That I don't think that's wildly unrealistic, but
well, part of the win now mode for them is interesting because you don't want to subtract those game changing dudes from Joe Burrow at a point where you're like, man, we can go win the Super Bowl next year if we keep our core together, and we've got you under contract control. And I know it's not going to please you to play out, you know, the final year of your rookie deal, but hey, you might have to do it for us because we're trying to win a championship. And T. Higgins, from everything that I've heard, is not one of these guys that's going to be sort of a cancer in terms of like fighting that to the tooth and nail, because he understands he's in a great situation. He's got a guy that is giving him a ton of opportunity to make big plays, to be on the highlight reels, to go up in, you know, big championship games and catch, you know, 50-50 balls in the end zone for touchdowns. So it would surprise me if Higgins got out of Cincinnati this year, because they are right on the cusp of doing some wonderful things. Listen, like if you're Ryan Poles, you have to explore everything right now. That's why I say when you're in Indy in 2 weeks and everybody's assembled, I don't know how he's going to account for all of his time there, because you got to get Ian Cunningham and say, here's your to-do list, you know, assistant GM, like I can't do everything that we need to do to get done here. So you got to handle these conversations, and I'm going to be over here. And they have got to be active for a 7-day period down there, exploring everything, draft, free agency, trades, you know, whatever it looks like, you know, interviewing the draft prospects, trying to figure out who the headliner of this class is going to be for their draft class, right? Because like no matter how far you trade back, you have to make sure that you get somebody in this draft that you can put onto your depth chart for 2030, right? Like you got to put that in ink and be like, yes, you are going to be a part of our team for 7 years, and we believe in you that much. Because if you fail on that, well, now all of this celebration that we've done for months about, they got the number 1 pick. What does it matter if you don't turn it into actual players who help you win championships?
So stay there. I'm sorry, Shane.
Go ahead.
My father, we do a Patriots eye. He's like, you don't fuck around with the trades. You get blue chip players. You go up to the podium and you take Will Anderson and you build young defense. You hit free agency and you build it like that. Dan, are you in that camp, or more do you want the trade down for this?
Well, I understand both parts of it. I would prefer the trade down just because of the number of players you need. And if you can get, you know, a top 10 pick this year, you get another one for next year, whatever these trades look like. Well, now all of a sudden you're giving yourself more swings at actually connecting and doing that. And with where the Bears are at, go for it. But if you determine, and nobody really has, I think everyone really feels good about who Will Anderson is going to be in the NFL, but no one has said that he's a, you know, first ballot Hall of Famer, and he's not one of these generational guys that you can't find anywhere else. And so, you know, like the stage that the Bears are in, stockpile, try to find ways to buy yourself some margin for error, really, you know, and more swings and more opportunities to get guys that can help you long term. If they stood there and took Will Anderson, well, you know, I think you'd have yourself a great player, and then you'd have to turn him into a legendary player. You know,
he's got generation. You take him at 1, he's got to be
He's got to be legendary.
I'll go on the record and say that I believe this guy is a generation. He's Khalil Mack as a young, you know, he's that kind of talent, that blue chip prospect. Remember Polian talking about the Bears. They don't have many blue chippers. We're looking at this roster. I mean, my God. Right. Now you got Justin Fields. I love David Montgomery. I'd put him up there, but I don't know what they're going to do at that position. But Will Anderson, I believe, is the safe. He was the best player in last year's draft, in my opinion. So here he is again, and you never have to worry about the thing we always miss on is guys that don't love the game. You don't have to worry about with this kid.
Right. And well, listen, like this regime, and the last regime was like this as well. They are dialed in to the passion guys. Love the passion guys, the guys that eat, sleep, dream football, and all of that makes a difference in the culture you're building. I'm glad you brought up Polian, because like when he assessed this roster, when he was helping George McCaskey and Ted Phillips decide whether they should fire Ryan Pace. And he looked at the roster and said, look, to be a legitimate championship contender, you need 10 to 12 blue chip guys. And this roster had, like at the time, I think he said 6 to 8. Well, you know how many have been subtracted since then. And so I asked Ryan Poles last month at the end of the season, I said, outside of Justin, who on this roster do you identify as a potential blue chipper? And he instantly answered Cole Kmet and then never gave a second name. And you were just like, holy crap, like literally that's the state of this roster right now where the GM says, it's our tight end and I can't give you a second name. And you're like, wow, this is the road that they've got to climb to get back in this mix.
That'll come up in contract negotiations.
For sure, right? No, I mean, no question. Like if I'm Cole's agent, I'm scribbling that down and going,
exactly.
You ID'd
you put Cole Kmet as a blue chip, Dan?
So I think he's saying that he has the potential to become one. He's certainly not it yet, but I love Cole. We have a running joke on the Take the North podcast that like Cole is my guy because he just I think he's about all the right things. I think he's unselfish. I think he does a lot of things well. I'd like to see him catch the football better. He fights it at times and doesn't make the natural hands catches at times, but he's also not. He's going to help you win more than he's ever going to get you beat. And they've seen things in him in terms of his willingness to block, his willingness to play multiple rows, his willingness to just grind and be part of this building process without being high maintenance or frustrated or whatnot. That absolutely gives him a chance to squeeze the absolute most out of his talent. And so then we'll see where they can take it. And particularly if Justin takes the next step, then you'd figure the scoreboard starts to take the next step, and then that all gets distributed around to the guys that he's throwing to.
Something that we've been talking about here at TTNL, and you alluded to it with the free agency class of wide receiver. Well, then what's the next best thing is then I feel like they're going to spend on an extension for Cole. And I also think they're going to go into it in free agency and get another one that does something, because you have guys like Evan Ingram out there, Dalton Schultz, Mike Gesicki, and we had Matt Waldman on last week, and he said a very underrated name that the Bears should keep an eye on is Foster Moreau, that he thinks is on the cusp, and ready to break out and would be a really good complement to Cole Kmet. And I think you take some of the things off of Cole's plate and just say if they went out and brought in a guy like Evan Ingram that can stretch the field and do some of the downfield stuff, and then you have Cole Kmet and his bread and butter and the intermediate routes doing what he does. I think that in and of itself is essentially like adding a wide receiver, and that's going to make your offense overall and make Justin Fields an even better quarterback because, Philadelphia lives and breathes by bring tight end more. Kansas City, we have two guys building this team that are from both organizations that believe in that. So I think you're going to see another tight end added there.
I was just looking up Cole's stats, 50, 544, and 7, which isn't like mind blowing, but for the passing offense that was 32nd in the NFL by a country mile, it's pretty good production for as much struggles as they've had. And so now if you can elevate the passing game, you figure you can boost those totals pretty easily. But I'm with you, Shane. I think that is a need and something that they can get done at their price in free agency. I don't think you have to force the issue. I think you can go get one of those guys that is proven and can help you in different ways. And you can strike there and you can add depth to that position. And then you don't have to use as much resource wise as you would to go get a top tier receiver. And now you can build, we just got done watching a Super Bowl where one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time is chucking the ball around to a receiving core that's, Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney and Jody Fortson and Marquez Valdez-Scantling. You know what I mean? So nobody's comparing Justin to Patrick Mahomes in terms of what he can do in that regard, but you can succeed if you also have playmakers at running back and tight end and an offense that knows how to use all of your playmakers to their strengths, which obviously Kansas City is like the pie in the sky dream of you get all these things to come together. You have one of the best quarterbacks ever, one of the best tight ends ever, one of the best offensive minds coaching your team ever. Voila, you're holding up the trophy. But you can approach that in different ways. And so to your point, I think you can go out in free agency and target one of these other tight ends and add to that room.
You look at David Montgomery, Ryan Poles talking about him, you interviewing him, the work ethic, you talking about them wanting this kind of character in it. Is he going to be back in 2020?
It's one of my biggest curiosities of the next month, because David has to decide for himself, how much opportunity does he want? How much money does he think he wants? And how much does it mean to him to try to stay here to continue building he's been through the lows here, right? And
it's all he's been through.
the dude is, he breathes passion. Like that dude is all passion. He runs the ball like that. He goes to practice like that. It's just who he is. And so that's why the Bears value him the way they do. Now, they're not going to go out and overspend on a running back when you've got a very deep running back class in the draft. You've got Khalil Herbert, who needs work in pass protection, but certainly showed you he can be a guy that is productive carrying the football, and so you can mix and match things. Now, to the Bears' benefit, you guys have seen the list of the running backs that are available in free agency, and so supply and demand tells you that they don't have to necessarily overspend to keep David Montgomery here. And so some of that is just, again, a byproduct of how does the market set itself in those first few days of free agency. What does Josh Jacobs get? What does Saquon Barkley get? Where does Miles Sanders wind up? And how do all these dominoes kind of affect the whole running back market to the point where you say, well, here's our price. Are you willing to play on our team friendly price? Are you looking for more? Can you get more elsewhere? And then they've just got to play that game.
Yeah, that's what I've maintained. And Phil and I have talked about this ad nauseum with David. Love everything about him, but what's going to bring David Montgomery back is the market and his financial expectations. If he wants to be paid a lot of money, it ain't going to happen in Chicago, because the market is not going to let him get paid a ton of money. I just don't see that.
The other part of this is,
for him.
You hear a word out of Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus's mouths a lot, and it's the word speed. They really, really like speed. And I think they would like to add an element of speed to the backfield that we haven't seen in a long time. And so it's an opportunity to look at this draft class and say, is there a burner here? Is there a burner here that complements Khalil Herbert that can really, take an 8-yard gain and turn it into 65? Now, if you add that with
Alabama,
Jahmyr Gibbs. That's what you're describing. You're describing Jahmyr Gibbs.
So let's see where that goes. But man, wouldn't you guys love to see a back with just some burners on him playing next to Justin? And now trying to defend our zone regame.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. I'm sorry. How confident are you in the offensive coordinator? Here's a guy that's never been one, and now he's thrust into this. How much of this offensive shambles, it's going to be hard for you to answer, I guess, goes on him? How much confidence being around this coaching staff do you have in the offensive coordinator? Because he's essentially having the keys to this car.
Yeah. I have a lot more confidence in Luke Getsy than a lot of the Chicago Bears fan base has. And I think Luke would like to see obviously some upgrades in talent to the group that he's working with, and then try to take the next step in the next year of Justin's development. I think that the way he's wired, he's one of my favorite people to talk to in the building there, because he's just so direct and candid and doesn't need to play games with how he says things or what he says. He's just to the point. And this is our strengths. This is our weaknesses. This is what we got to work on. And he's been so good for Justin in being real. Like, Justin's a dude that likes to be coached hard, and Luke is willing to coach him hard. And so they cut through the bullshit really quickly with each other, where they can make growth in the developmental process, because they're not tiptoeing around anything. It's just like, dude, like, this play was horrible. You've got to fix this. And they can have the honest back and forth in that regard that helps take the quarterback up. Now, if the quarterback can climb 3 more stairs in his development in 2023, the offense is going to look a lot better. Luke was very direct with me. I'm writing a piece for next month on the book on Justin Fields and how he's viewed inside the building and league wide. And part of the conversation I had with Luke at the end of the season was just kind of looking into Justin's wiring and how they can go forward with things. And he's very direct in saying, look, like, when you rank number 1 in the league in rushing and 32nd in the league in passing, something's broken, right? The balance is broken. And the Bears can't deny that their passing game was broken this year, and that they had to overcompensate by, devoting themselves to the running game the way they did, by turning Justin loose on design quarterback runs, by then giving him the freedom to run off script. But they know that they've got to narrow that gap between 1 and 32, that's not sustainable, that you're never going to be successful in this league. And it bears itself out. I mean, you just go look at, the top 10 teams in the league in passing offense and how they did this season, right? Versus the bottom 10. And you say, okay, well, that's the ticket in the modern day NFL. And so now they've got to figure out a way through a number of different things to unlock the passing game, because the passing game was abysmal. And anybody that fights that is just detached from reality. And maybe that in my intro is where, a lot of people get upset because they think that this is some, over exaggerated, admonishment of Justin Fields. It's not that. The passing game was broken. Like their passing productivity in the last 25 years, they were like one of the 7 worst teams in 25 years in terms of passing production. Like that's not just bad, that's historically bad. And so you've got to figure out how to fix that.
Do you think what do you think is the main culprit of that?
It's a pie chart, Shane. It really is a pie chart. And it's up to the people in House Hall to divvy that up, because I think we'd all agree that you put offensive line as a piece of that pie. You put receiving talent as a piece of that pie. You put play calling as a piece of that pie. You put, and then you have to figure out what is Justin's share in that? And a lot of people wanted to put it at like 0 or 1%. And that's not true either. Like it's higher than that. It might be 15, 20, 25%, where like him as a quarterback with the ability to, process and react in a way that produces production is something that needs to happen. Now we've seen him make the special plays. What they talk about all the time inside the building, and now you're hearing this around the league, is like, he's got it. He's right. That's one thing I love about Justin is he knows it too, right? Like he knows he's got to do the simple. He's got to do the simple better. And he's got to figure out how to be more, his words on Radio Row at the Super Bowl last week was just how to be calm in a chaotic environment. And that's what the pocket is in the NFL. And you've got to figure out how to navigate that. This isn't Ohio State where you've got all day to throw and you've got receivers that you can hold on to the ball for 8 seconds and eventually they're going to be open for 60 yards. You've got to learn to be like, that guy's kind of open, rip it, trust him, And there was a lot of that this year that he didn't rip it when it was there to be ripped.
He had the best extreme to analyze him as a draftable player in what you're talking about at Ohio State, first round receiver, blah, blah, blah. And then he got great talent in front of him and a good play. And then he comes to the Bears.
Penthouse to the outhouse.
Complete, utter opposite under Matt Nagy and the negligence there. And then Getsy gets in here, the trades out, it's so hard, that pie chart, to divvy it up. But I think fans have to hear, and I'm defending Dan here because it's so true. Like, you can't be blaming everything on Justin. It's Justin. There's those fans, right? Justin sucks. Yeah. But it's also, you can't not blame some of this on Justin because it's a team sport. And there are showcases that we've shown you on tape where you got to let it rip. You got to anticipate. You
number one issue coming out of college. Yeah. His number one issue coming out of college was everybody would say, he just got to speed it up just a little bit more.
Will he do that? That's the, now, Dan, we don't know. Even if we get all it, but you have to make that decision, because if we got the first round pick this year, I'm going to ask you this question. Shane and I tried to make Shane say it like, ad libs when you just write a word down. He won't do it. I am not afraid. If Caleb Williams was in this draft.
Oh, good Lord.
I trade Justin Fields and take Caleb. That's me, the coach and GM. I'm not afraid to say that. But I know next year Caleb Williams is going to be.
He's afraid to say that he'd take Bryce over Justin Fields.
I'm breaking down all of Bryce's tapes. The size of Bryce Young
shouldn't take you long. He's the same size as Mina Kimes. We saw the picture today.
He's wearing 4-inch heels.
It's not height worried about. It's frame with him is the issue, dude. He's 180 pounds.
You got Jared Goff out there playing.
He's infinitely bigger.
He's much
than
tougher
Bryce
than
Young.
Jared Goff and better.
Bryce
Young is. Anyway,
Caleb Williams. It's the stature thing on Bryce Young, and that's where it's going to be fascinating over this next month to see how the league kind of sorts through that, because there's going to be a lot of teams that you put on the video, and the video is compelling. It's like 100%. This dude got playmaking instincts, and he knows where he's supposed to put the ball, when he's supposed to put the ball there. He's got that feel. You hear the Steph Curry, comps to the NBA, maybe, but like 180 in the NFL, it may get you killed in 6 weeks. It may get you killed in 6 weeks.
With this offensive line, it will.
Right. And so you
would
better
you
know how
would
to
you take if Caleb was in this draft? Would you say, hey, you got to take Caleb?
I think you would. I think you would. I think you'd have to get a trade package together, and you'd have to make that deal. And that's why. But look, like he's going to be available next year, and so you have to position yourself.
Down. Yes.
Right. So that you can get in that sweepstakes if you need to, and it may be a sweepstakes that you need to get into. And like things that you hear about Drake May now from people in the league. They're like, there's some special sauce to this kid too. Like, so look for that 1-2 combination in the 2024 draft. That's going to be really, really cool for two cities. Ideally, Chicago's not one of those cities, because you would hope that Justin takes the next step, builds on everything he did this year, and you don't have to break stride. Because the whole thing in Chicago is we're always breaking fucking stride.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, and it's the most important position in football, aside from finally getting Ted Phillips out. And you can speak on this. I'm sorry, Shane. I think it's so important. How much do you think Warren will be a part of talking with Ryan Poles about the football things, where Ted's like, I'm just a fan with George, but I'm going to put my foot down. You ain't doing that. I'm
the Mitch
not
trade.
getting LaDainian Tomlinson.
You don't think Kevin Warren's walking into and saying, Ryan, let's just sit down and talk about this real quick. Ted's not.
No.
Guys, this is so basic. And it's so dumbfounding to me that it's existed for as long as it has. This idea that there, like if you're a team president and you stick your nose in on a football business, that you're meddling. Anybody that has had productive oversight above them in any job anywhere and has been better because of the person that is their boss or their leader understands why Kevin Warren's entry into the building is an amazing thing. I've said openly, like, I think Ryan Pace would have been a better general manager if he had someone like Kevin Warren above him to help him navigate what was a historic moment in 2017 leading up to the draft. And that, look, like I documented it with Rich Campbell, all of the missteps that were made in that process. They would have stopped 6 or 7 of those from happening if you had somebody that was involved and as a sounding board and just actively walking in every week and being like, hey, what kind of progress you made on this quarterback hunt that's going to define our franchise for the next 10 years, and let's just sound things out. Let's spitball things. There were so many things that were wrong in that process that won't be wrong with Ryan Poles talking with Kevin Warren on a regular basis and doing so in a way where they both feel energized by it. You already feel that between the two guys. They're excited to work together, to exchange thoughts. They've both been in organizations that have achieved at high levels. Kevin started with the Rams way back when they were putting together that championship run. Obviously, Ryan was with the Chiefs when they were terrible and then flipped it, and now they're the model that everyone's trying to complete. Exactly. I've said a couple times that one of the greatest things that a team president like Kevin Warren can do is get inside that building and sweep away the banana peels. The shit that people slip on, right? Like all the time, just sweep them away. You may not notice. We may not talk about the contributions he's making, but if he removes 10 to 12 banana peels and they don't fall on their face, you're not going to be like, oh, that's Kevin Warren. But it's going to be Kevin Warren to some extent by having oversight of all these different departments, all these different things, and making everyone in the organization hold themselves to a higher standard. On the football side, that's Ryan Poles, and their relationship is going to be awesome to watch.
Awesome stuff right there, man.
Dan, if we get back into the draft, I mean, we see it. I had to laugh yesterday. I was texting Phil when Indy was bringing in Steichen, and I'm like, here goes Ursay, and I'm sending it to Phil. And, it's funny. And then I don't know if you saw the other tweet today.
Yeah.
The connection. But I said, part of me thinks that, I mean, if you look at Chris Ballard when he said that yesterday, he almost blew a vertebrae out of his back, shifting his head around. But then it was almost like today he went out of his way to almost make it seem like it was a game. But if you look, everybody's talking about number 2, number 4, and then Carolina. We talked again with Matt Waldman last week about this, and he's like, Ryan Poles, to your point, has to go into Indy and convince teams that he may take a quarterback. I don't really look at it that way. I think he's got to convince teams that Houston's going to take your quarterback, more so than anything. But if you look at number 2 and number 4 and number 9, I don't know what it is. I feel like the Bears are going to get the Godfather offer from Carolina. I think that they are, I don't know if they go vet, somebody talked a little bit about potentially maybe Carr going there today, but if they go in the draft, I feel like Carolina is ripe with the draft assets, with a wide receiver like DJ Moore that's under contract that you don't have to pay again. You have a defensive lineman in Brian Burns that if he's got to be part of that. What do you think of Houston, Indy, Carolina?
Yeah, I mean, so this is part of the game, right, that Ryan has to play. And part of this game is, look, like, I don't think that he has to fake interest in a quarterback to drum up interest in that number 1 pick, but he does have to make sure that he has 2 suitors for it, right? Like, you have to be in an auction. You can't have an auction hall where there's only one person in there raising the thing, because then they get it at their meeting.
Then you're Ryan Pace moving up from number 3 to number 2 to number 3, right?
Right.
We're gonna take him home.
And we'll get back to that in a minute because I have a couple thoughts on that. But like you have to be able to create that demand, and part of that is now, like, maybe you've got to message some things where you say, oh yeah, Bryce Young is generational, and you have to say that so people go, oh God, like, now maybe we got to do it. And so this idea that the Texans and Colts are in the same division and you can play off each other's desperation on being like, well, not only are we going to trade this pick, but we're going to trade it to your division rival who's going to get the guy you really want. And well, now you play that game. Where the Texans have an advantage is that if the Texans can figure out a way to avoid the Ryan Pace conundrum, which was Mitch and Mitch only. We couldn't live with the thought of losing Mitch and having to settle for Patrick or Deshaun, right? Like that was the biggest mistake made, was moving up from 3 to 2 because you couldn't settle for, and Patrick was their number 2 quarterback on their board. I know that unequivocally. And so you could have just sat there. And even if Cleveland or San Francisco took Mitch, you would have been like, all right, well, we got Patrick Mahomes. And so now Houston, if they can get themselves comfortable and say, like, we love Bryce, but we value Will Levis pretty much the same. And so we're fine if somebody jumps up to 1, steals the Bears pick and takes Bryce because we think we can win with Will Levis the same. Now they don't feel desperate and urgent to make that trade. And so that's where Nick Caserio in Houston's got to play that discipline game and make sure he doesn't get out over his skis. And maybe he can identify 2 guys that he's willing to be comfortable with. Because that's all he needs to identify is 2, right? And if you identify 2 that you're willing to live with, now all of a sudden you don't feel compelled to give up draft capital to take that pick from the Bears.
Yeah, I just think it's Carolina intrigues me so much. And I said, now they got Josh there as the quarterback coach, and you saw the whole big production that he did, breaking down CJ Stroud, calling him Joe Burrow, of all people. And I said, that's the team. And it is a big drop, but the bigger drop that there is, like, to your point, Dan, you're filling a lot of holes. You're giving yourself a lot of assets. They got the extra picks from the McCaffrey deal.
Yep.
Plus you're getting into 2024.
Yep. They've got the ammo, right? Like, and that's what you want, because now it buys you that ability to go down multiple paths. They're interesting. Like, Josh is one of my favorite people that I've ever been around in the league. That dude is he's got a book that when his time is all said and done is going to be compelling to read, because you go look at the number of people, both quarterbacks that he's been around as a backup, quarterback that he's been around as a mentor, coaches he's played. I mean, like, the list of guys that are connected to Josh McCown in the NFL is unreal. And so that guy's got some stories to tell. That's just an aside of
he's going to be a head coach.
Yeah. Quickly.
No doubt. Yep.
Yeah.
He almost was last year.
Yeah. Lucky for him, he didn't get it, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, in that fire in Houston, I don't know if that's where you want to take your first swing at things.
Hey, they gave us the first round pick. So
talk on that real quick, Dan. Yeah. What was when that was going down? I think it was, we were sitting here, we do a show immediately after it goes final called BHL, and Ivan, one of our producers, and I were sitting here. We ended up going live, and we're like, let's just give the fans our live reactions. I mean, we're losing our shit. Couldn't believe it. You see the big 4th down play. And then I had to laugh with Peterman had his presser, and I think it was David Haw and maybe Greenberg were the only 2 people in there for the presser at the time. But talk about your experience when that whole thing went down.
Well, so good memory there, and good reflection on that, because, like, I will say, unequivocally that I have never watched less of a regular season football game than I did of Bears Vikings that day. Like, I'm sitting in the press box. I mean, like, I could not be more bored with what's happening here, and it means nothing to anybody. You know, Tim Boyle's taking snaps here and chucking it around, and you know, the Vikings took out their starters in the second quarter, and you're like, what are we doing here today? And so then that Houston game gets rolling, it gets lopsided one way, and then it comes back the other way, and then it's here, it's there, and you're like, what's going to happen? And then was it 4th and 20? It was like 4th and something 18? On the touchdown pass, and
4th and crazy.
And it was a terrible throw into traffic,
right through his hands.
And so you're up there and you go, what the fuck just happened? You know,
and like, when that happened, aren't you like, they're going to blow the 2-point conversion though? I mean, clearly. Yeah.
Well, at that point, you're like, all bets are off. Anything's on the table at that point. If this guy can't catch an interception that goes right over his head, and the guy behind him who just is standing there watching the guy catch it. I mean, it was insane. There was an eruption in the back of the press box from people watching that just because of the significance of it and what it meant, you know, and so then you're just, it was wild, right? Like, it's just a wild moment. And again, I go back to that word confusing that I used at the start, where it's just like, what are we doing here? Like we're here in week 18, we're covering this game that's an absolute shit show that the Bears have absolutely zero interest in competing in, right? Like, there was no question that anybody who took Vikings money line at the start of that week could have put their entire life savings on it and felt pretty comfortable about it. And then you get to the point where you're watching Texans, Colts, and where like in the final stages of that, it was just like such a weird thing to be dialed in on. And for it to unfold the way it did, you know, and it's certainly something I'll never forget watching those last few moments. And now history needs to reflect that it was actually something that mattered, and that's up to the Bears to take this consolation prize, this beautiful, shiny number 1 pick that they got for losing 10 in a row, and actually turn it into something.
It was crazy, and the story is going to be, you know, what transpires now because of that situation. That will be the title of your book on the Bears. You know, 4th and 17, because it sets up the offseason. You know, I'm never cheering for losing. I just won't, but I didn't know how to feel about it. But you look at what you're saying here. Since 1947, the Bears haven't had the first overall pick. They did get it and lost the coin flip for the Terry Bradshaw draft when the Steelers ended up winning the coin toss, yada, yada, yada. Now here we are on the precipice of everything from new president, Justin Fields, and building this roster.
The Larry Mayer building. Don't forget that.
The Larry Mayer lunch buffet at the new Soldier Field in Arlington Heights. That would be funny.
Oh my fucking God. Your lunch with Larry.
We do drops on here.
I love it.
We saved you a lot of drops tonight, but here we are on this precipice. You look at this. Is George McCaskey finally passing this baton? Now Kevin has this, and he can just be the fan?
Yeah, to a large extent. Now, I mean, he still controls some decision making, and I think he'll be agreeable to most of them, as he usually is. But yeah, I mean, like you've got a head honcho now, and I think that we've all asked for a long time is like, get me a head honcho in there, somebody that is willing to play the role and to understand that you are trying to win championships in a cutthroat billion-dollar industry. And you don't get that by just being la-di-da, you know, this is, you know, oh, we failed. Oh, well, you know, we'll figure it out next time. And so now you have this, you have this presence. And I've described it as like, there's going to be a healthy pressure inside that building across all facets of the building.
Yep.
That's okay. That's a good thing. Some people are going to hate it and want to seek other jobs, and they'll get out of there. Fine. Healthy pressure will bring results from every different department that then elevates everything that happens within the organization, which then turns you into a potential championship contender. Now, you've got to get the players. That's the biggest thing that you have to do, and you've got to get them right. And this general manager has to be more successful than the last one at drafting. He's got to be more successful at drafting and developing, and you've got to make sure that you just put yourself in a position to sustain success, because the stat I come back to all the time 1988, the last time the Bears had 3 consecutive winning seasons. That is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's abysmal. So Dan, I want to have a little fun with you here. You're gonna be general manager, Dan Wiederer, for a second for me. So the Bears,
I applied last year. They didn't give it to me.
the Bears
refused.
The Bears have pulled off a trade. What they accumulate doesn't really matter too much, but they've moved to number 4 overall. They did the trade, and so JJ Stankovitz is going nuts. He's got the number 1 pick up there for Irsay. But so at number 1, they take a quarterback. Number 2, Houston takes Will Anderson. Now Jonathan Gannon and his new crew in Arizona take Jalen Carter at number 3. And you're the Bears on the clock at number 4, and you don't have any trade offers for any of these quarterbacks. Now, is that the ultimate kick in the nuts after everything that's happened in a positive manner for the Bears?
What if we can go back further? What if we can stockpile more picks?
Part of it was you have no trade offers for anybody to move up at number 4.
Because I'm intrigued by JSN from Ohio State, right? And reuniting him with just not at 4. That's why I was asking if we could.
I was going to say, because I would fire you as the GM instantly if you did that.
That's why I want to move back further, right? And have that reunion, because like Justin has been forward in saying, look, like Justin played with some dudes at Ohio State. You've got Olave and Jamison Williams, and he said like JSN was the guy of the guys in terms of ceiling, and the things he could be. And so I think that would be a cool firework to match. But man, I'm peeking down my list here of like, I mean, I guess you go Skoronski, and just lock down your tackle position.
I would take the Ohio State offensive tackle over Skoronski. Yeah, Paris.
You'd be looking at Wilson.
I would have to take Wilson, I think.
Little footnote, Skoronski went to my high school, so I might be biased.
Oh, you are a little biased.
You probably have longer arms than he does too, Dan.
I definitely do. My length is one of my strengths.
But no, that's Houston. I mean, who knows? Like you
said,
they
gotta take a quarterback.
They have assets next year too, though. They got D'Amico Ryans there. 6-year deal buys you a lot of time, man.
Yeah, and you don't, like you're not always behooved to start that clock early. Like you can buy yourself in year 1. Like, let's just feel this out a little bit. Let's try to be competitive with so and so, and then we can. I mean, like you guys talk about Caleb Williams, right? Like. Yeah. Go lose 14 games again. you know what I mean? Like,
got a 6-year deal. You're not going anywhere.
Right. Like, you don't have to take that quarterback this year. And so that's
for Caleb.
Yeah.
That'll be the chance.
But I mean, nobody's talked about that too much, but that's one of these things that you have to plan out.
That's the risk.
It could happen. It really, the draft is crazy like that. You see Anderson and Carter go 2 and 3, and then
the Raiders could come up. The Raiders are a possibility here at 1, guys. With the whole situation with Derek Carr, you got to put the Raiders as a possibility. I mean, could you imagine if they threw in a certain receiver?
Well, wait until 12 comes out of the darkness, wherever he's in the darkness. That may shift plans in Las Vegas.
You think it's coming? You think that's coming, Dan? For real?
I have no idea what's coming there. I just know that darkness retreat is going to produce a lot of enlightenment and a lot of reflection that, it's just going to be real fascinating to see what happens.
His mother probably hopes he stays in that retreat.
And the father. And his brother.
Yeah.
They all dislike him, for God's sake. Maybe he'll help own the Bears.
But I think I saw something yesterday, maybe it was, where that the Lions are actually the Vegas favorite to win the North next year.
I saw that too.
Which is insane, right? Like,
are you surprised by that?
Well, I mean, it's a landscape change. If Aaron leaves, and you've got this, that just blows the doors open, and they're probably already open more than we've seen them in a long time.
Exactly.
To the division being interesting, and trying to find your path to getting there. And man, like, we celebrated a lot in Chicago over this organization getting the number 1 pick. Well, look at what Detroit's got in draft capital this year and how many picks they've got in the top 60, 70 to add to a roster that's 6 games better than the Bears right now. A 9-win team that surged at the end of the year and clearly found who they are to some extent. Now they've got, like, I've talked to people in Detroit. What fascinates me is I think they've got a golden opportunity to go out and try to get their quarterback now. Right. And use
go get Lamar Jackson with 6 and 18. Then Baltimore's got 3 1s to retool.
Yeah. But like
Seriously.
the Lions, like you could use Goff as a bridge guy, but people in Detroit say, I don't know if he's mentally strong enough to handle that, and that he may crumble as a bridge guy. And you're like, okay, so then, they may try to play the game that the Vikings have been playing with Cousins, like good enough, he's good enough. He can keep us competitive in this little run here, and we try to squeeze as much as we can out of them. But man, like they're in an interesting spot right now in Detroit because they've got something good going and they've got to figure out how to keep it going.
That quarterback situation there, I'm not a believer in Goff at all. He did play pretty good this year. I don't know his numbers, but
it just that
he folds like a tent under pressure. And the Bears were in these games against that. We were at Soldier Field for the one at home. I mean, talk about.
I mean, they had a 2-score lead in the fourth quarter.
Exactly, should have won that game. And oh my God,
horrible pick 6.
So that's one of the games that got me on the shit list of a lot of Bears fans because I was critical of Justin for not being able to go down and lead a game-winning drive in the late stages. And people like say that, you're overvaluing that. Well, this league is about quarterbacks learning how to break through and become that. I mean, the reason that the Chiefs didn't flinch down 10 at halftime of the Super Bowl is because they've been there before. And Mahomes is just like, jump on, guys. We're good. Like, I got this. And so, like, I get it. Like, Justin can eventually get there. But my argument is the faster you get there, the better. Like, there's not a lot of time to waste in this league. And so get those experiences under your belt when you've got opportunities to win games late. And so like that Lions game was one where people came after me and you may have been one of them, Shane. I don't know.
No, I don't think I didn't come after you on there. I think my intensity with that portion of it is I don't buy into they have to learn to win. I don't think it means too much because I saw Philadelphia punt on a game and it didn't mean shit. You know what I mean? Yeah. They did it solely for draft picks.
Sure.
For the next year, and it didn't mean anything. I look back to 1997 when the Bears learned to win at the end of the year. They won 3 out of their last 4, and it didn't mean shit moving forward, and it also cost them a chance at Peyton Manning. You know what I mean? So
no matter how you look at it.
Well, I honestly, Dan, 100%. I honestly think that the Bears would have drafted Ryan Leaf.
Right.
I really do. I do.
Right.
Even if they had number 1 that year. That's
the
way
that was always my counter argument to you got to get the number 1 pick. No, you got to get the number 1 pick and then get the number 1 pick right. Like getting the number 1 pick is not an achievement. It's like you sucked and here you go, like try to go do something with this. Now the achievement is turning it into something and figuring out what that looks like. With Justin, there are things as an extension of that conversation of figuring out how to be clutch down the stretch and figuring out how to make those plays when there are plays to be made. And obviously your supporting cast is going to contribute to that without question. But part of his next step here is getting in a flow where you know what to expect on a week-to-week basis. You talk about being in the first game against the Lions. Well, Phil, they weren't in the second game against the Lions. They got their doors blown off. They lost by 31 points. And in a game where they were behind by 2 scores for the final 5 minutes of the first half and beyond, Justin threw for 75 damn yards, and like, we can't just ignore that. I had somebody say to me, how long are we going to talk about the 4-game uptick in offensive production that was 6 games ago? You know what I mean?
And totally agree.
Numbers. I had somebody in the league tell me this. I'm tipping my hand on something that's going to be in my story 3 weeks from now. They said, break Justin's 2022 season into 5-game thirds. First third of the year, we all know what those first 5 starts were for Justin. 17.2 points per game, like 270 yards offense. They were broken. They were a mess. Come out of that mini bye, they kind of find themselves a little bit. They get on that roll that everyone felt so good about. Well, guess what? The last 5 games of the season, points per game and yards per game are almost identical to the first 5 games of the year. So you can't just ignore that and be like, no, the one that really matters is the 5-game stretch that makes us feel the best. You know what I mean? Because there's two other 5-game stretches that sandwich that don't make you feel that good. And you can't ignore that, especially if you're trying to become a championship contender with your forever quarterback. And that's my argument is like, if you want Justin just to be a top 20 starter, for the next 5 years, cool. Like we're probably crossing that bridge right now. But if you want him to be your forever quarterback, the engine of championship runs, the standards are a whole bunch different.
That's why as an analyst, this has been the hardest ever for me to look at tape and understand, because there's so much fundamentals messed up, blocking assignments, communication, wrong routes run, delayed and throw, all of it combined. Justin covered all these warts with his amazing ability to keep plays alive with his feet or run the football. That's what that middle story was. If there were tanking, you were around it. That second Detroit game looked to me like nobody fucking cared. And that's unfortunate if that's the case. And we know the last game probably was, but if there was more of that and this was the plan, and, Courtney Cronin was on, was it last week or the week before, talking about the deflated locker room when you trade your leaders out. You could feel it there. Like Roquan meant this, and the players feel it. So on the football field, this is the hardest to know. Is it Justin? Is it the line? Is it the play caller? Is it all? That's why Ryan Poles and Kevin Warren have to say, chips all in. We're getting the best that we can get at each position of need. We have the money, we have the means, and we have the ability. That's what you have to do here. Because the quarterback position is the most important.
Yeah,
Mahomes won that game because of what you said. And to your point, and I think it's a fair one, Dan, Justin hasn't taken the ball and drove down the football field, throwing the ball, making the right reads, and scoring. Now, the Commanders game, Mooney should have caught that ball. And that could
he just bobbled it and got stopped at the 2.
Yep,
exactly. So this has been the confusion.
You're hoping that you're not relying on St. Brown and Pettis and Amir Smith-Marset. I mean, that was another one that was stripped away.
Right,
literally stripped away.
St. Brown against Detroit.
Bayless Jones muffin punts and
Bayless against Dallas. That deep ball down the right. That momentum in that game. St. Brown.
That's all excuses, but they all matter. But Justin, to your point, he does have to be better. But I don't know.
Hard.
And
I'll go back to this because I've said this a lot in the last 2.5 months. Is that Justin handles criticism of Justin better than most Bears fans handle criticism of Justin. And it's something I really admire in the kid. He's got really thick skin. He's got great self-awareness. When he makes this media blitz on Radio Row at the Super Bowl, it wasn't like a look at me, I've arrived thing. There's a lot of humble talk coming out of his mouth. I'm like, I was bad the last few games. I have a lot I need to work on. I understand why there's talks of me being traded. I know I've got to prove more to a lot of people. The dude is what you want in terms of wiring, and he's what you want in terms of athletic talent. He's what you want. And there's so many boxes checked. And now the biggest one next is can you become a consistent productive pocket passer? Right. And that's 2023. And again, hopefully we're 40 starts into his career when we get to the end of the year, and we look at it and go, okay, it's there, or I don't know. Now you've got to consider alternate pass, because there's a lot of people that look at this and are like, oh, they've got him. This is only his 3rd year of his rookie deal, and you can keep him, and then year 3 for quarterbacks picked in the top 15 is the year where you make your decision. You got to decide you're going to pay him or not, really, to some extent at this time next year. You're going to have to exercise the 5th year option, and once you do that, you're locked in and you're guaranteeing that, which means you're probably going to sign an extension. So that clock is ticking right now, and it's going to tick louder for every game they play in 2023.
Dan, do you think if I asked you the end of August and said the Bears are going to have the number 1 pick, but they feel very comfortable moving forward with Justin Fields as their quarterback, that everybody would have signed off on that as a win overall?
Oh yeah, I mean, they were signed off on that. I would have said it wouldn't have been possible because that to lose 14 games, your quarterback has to be pretty shitty, you know. But it wasn't the case, right? Like he wasn't shitty, and they lost 14 games, and it was that's why I say that word confusing. It was just like, how do you process this? Because never have you had so many highlight reel moments and adrenaline rushes and all these things that came with the Justin Fields experience, and it doesn't really equate into anything because it's loss, L10 to end the year.
Sure. And that's the thing. Like we were talking about this earlier too, and I can go back to Mitch. You know, Mitch had his brief moments where you're like, wow, that was impressive. And then you wouldn't see anything for 4 games, 5 games. Justin, you're seeing it every other series. It's something that you're like, that's not Bear-like. That's wow. You know what I mean? And I think that is absolutely critical at that position. Yes, that you have to see those holy shit plays all the time. And we have, and it's not just with his feet. I've seen I've seen passes. You're like, holy shit. That's what we need more of with a depleted cast around him. So like I said, he's got a lot of.
No one ever puts the defense and how piss poor they were in the reality of these laws. So confusion, Dan, is probably a mic drop moment for Dan Wiederer on this network because it's the perfect word. When I put you on the spot, that is going to stay with me.
That might need to be the highlight tape title to the 2022 Bears.
Confusion. Honestly, to pop those VHSs in and
get a hold of NFL films and they put it
confusion.
well, like, and the other part of this is like you go back to Justin's numbers, right? And you just can't ignore some of them. And like, you know, he's 25 starts in now. I think he's averaging 162 passing yards per game as a starter. Mahomes, I think he's up, playoffs and regular season is up to 94 starts, and he's averaging 301. You know what I mean? So like there's a big gap there. And like within that gap, what you're reading with Justin is like when you have 6 games out of 25 starts where you've topped 200 yards passing, you have to figure out what that's a symptom of and what's the diagnosis of it. And part of it is you got to learn to take the 6-yard pass. You've got to learn to hit the 3-yard check down that can turn into 15. You've got to get 6 or 7 of these plays in a game that are just like 8, 12, 14, you know, like, and then all of a sudden you're at 220, 240 really quickly because you're making the simple plays and you're making the routine. And all of a sudden you get momentum and you surge. And I think like that is part of a very attainable next step for this quarterback is to just like learn that not everything has to be a highlight reel play, that some of Tom Brady's best games were when he threw for 310 yards and he threw 3 passes more than 5 yards beyond the line of scrimmage, right? Like, cause he just distributed, got the ball out, didn't get hit, and let his playmakers do their thing. And so like, that's a big thing because all of the, you know, the 1,000 yards rushing that Justin had, you saw over time the fuel that took. You saw him needing to get his legs massaged on the sideline. You saw the fatigue, the fuel that was used for that, the exhaustion that then creates some fatigue in your brain when you're trying to process late in the game and you just don't have everything there. And so I think there's a message inside the building on like, bro, like just like learn to save fuel at times, you know, and just get the ball out, let somebody else do the work and live to see the next play and let's go. And if he can do those little things a little bit better, I think we're going to see big gains.
If you're just tuning in, we have the great. He is not the wet blanket that people try to describe him as, from the Chicago Tribune, Chicago Bears beat writer, Dan Wiederer. And at the Take the North pod, Dan, you have been so gracious with your, I'm having so much fun. I look up at the clock. I'm like, holy shit. Yeah. How long can I keep Dan? I don't want to overstep.
I'm a rambler. The kids are asleep by now, so I got nothing to do.
Okay, as long as you're cool.
That just shows you how critical this offseason is. You can talk about it for 90 minutes and not know where the time went.
We can talk about it for 90 minutes every day for 90 days, and we won't run out of stuff because it's going to be fluid. It's going to be evolving. There's going to be stuff every single week. Now, like one of the things I'll say from my seat that gets exhausting is filtering speculation and rumor from reality. And this next stretch is going to be full of that exercise. And you mentioned the Lock and Four report earlier tonight. I haven't even seen that yet, but that's one of those ones where you just like, it's like, it's an eye roll. Maybe you send a text here or there to, try to drill down on it a little more, but you got to save your bullets for when you send it's just, I have always said that like May 3rd is one of my favorite days in the NFL calendar because all the crazy, photoshopped player in the Bears uniform, all that stuff is gone. You've got a roster, you know what it looks like, you know what the draft class is, you know what free agency was, and now it's just like, okay, let's go.
Listen, you come on this show, you're like a spark plug. You're starting the engine. I love talking to Dan Wiederer, and you're just a class act. Now, did we send you the swag? I don't want to forget to ask you.
Last time, there's I got a shirt.
Okay. I wanted to double check because I was going to yell at our swag man. I was like, I don't know if Dan got it. I want to make sure. So, okay.
Should have been wearing it tonight, right? Like,
no, I wanted to make sure. I was talking to producer Chris Jackal. He don't do shit, but he does shit sometimes. He got you on the show, and Dion Miller just speaks so highly of you.
She's the best.
We gotta get Dion back on though. I gotta give it to Dion. Yeah.
What'd she do?
She went on. She was on? I don't know. I don't think she was on with you guys. Said that the Bears were in a 6-year rebuild. I'm like, come on, Dion. 6 years. Like, if it's 6 years, then Justin ain't the guy. Clearly.
Right. No, right. Like, right. Yeah, right. Like, then we're dealing with some stuff. Dion's out of spring training right now, so she's getting her baseball fix in right now in Arizona, but also getting some warmth and sunshine. I don't know what it's like where you're at right now, but today in
we're in New York and Connecticut. 60 degrees there in New York today.
My neck of it, we had like 50-mile-an-hour winds all day. It was one of those days where everything was blowing around on the patio. I couldn't keep it all straight.
You got to reach out. Chris Zorich is a part of our network and has a show on there. That's who you got to get him on your podcast. Talk about Kevin. Obviously, true connection there.
Dan.
Yeah.
Are you on Insta? Do you check your Instagram?
No.
Okay.
Have you been sending me stuff on Instagram?
I've been sending you stuff there. That's why I was.
No, I have not. If you
can probably you a happy birthday. I did it all.
Oh wow! See, all right, I haven't seen any of it. You can probably go check the last time I posted.
No, I'm joking. I'm just going to communicate with you through Jackal. I love you on this show because all I see is I'm not on Twitter. All I hear and see is hate on Dan Wiederer.
I keep Phil updated on the toxic nature of Twitter.
Give me Shane. Give me some of your impressions of some of that toxicity, and because this year was different for me because the toxicity reached new levels, and I was trying to filter through. Just a little aside, I was trying to filter through was I communicating messages improperly? Was my tone being misconstrued? Because I want to be conscious of that. But there were some things I was called some names this year for very basic, minor factual things that I put out there. I was like,
I think what it is, I think you have to look at it from the perspective of a Bears fan that's been repeatedly kicked in the balls over and over and over and over again. And then finally you get this little morsel of, oh my God, we might have something here. And then Dan Wiederer on Twitter may throw a little bit of water on your excitement. And I think that just gets amplified and stuff like that. And I know the one thing that caused the big controversy was, and I'm not saying that this is just you, but I think a lot of beat reporters in general, we have a real good relationship here with Herb Howard.
I love Herb. Herb's awesome.
The best. We talked to him about this because he is a Chicago Bears fan, grew up a Bears fan, and is very, very open about it. I think the disconnect with a lot of beat reporters and fans are fans want to have something to be excited about, obviously, because they love their team. And then some beat reporters will, I don't want to say they openly mock it, but they'll say, oh my God, these fucking fans. And I'm like, you need the fans just like the players do. You know what I mean? Oh my God, these fans are, I think that is where the angst comes. And not saying that it's just you.
No,
You've
dude,
done it. Everybody's done it.
That's fair. I mean, like I have things within my walls here at home where I say, yeah, you're right. I need to work on my tone.
So
I need to work on my tone at times.
Classic case when Grody took over as
it's a true story now.
Yeah, we had him on. Phil and I were at another network doing the same thing, and he just became the Bears guy. He had left baseball. Left the Cubs, and we had him live on air, and I was extremely critical of Mark. And I'm like, you've been the Bears beat guy, and here's a list of your tweets, Mark. And he had four. Yeah, there was 3 Bears tweets, and he's like, well, I just got on the beat. I'm trying to feel my way around it. Well, we had him back in season, and he's like, you fuckers stuck in my head. He goes, when I got in there, he goes, I thought of you guys every time. And he's like, it really helped me. Because I mean, Phil and I do. Listen, we're passionate Bears fans, but we're not airheads that are just going to say, "Oh, Justin does everything. Justin does everything great." And I think that's I think,
I would say, in my own admission, I would say I sometimes paint with way too broad of a brush.
Sure,
and like you take the 9 people that are being the loudest and screaming at you the most, and you're like, all these fuckers are like this, and so then you start throwing it out. And Twitter again, Twitter's just it's such a place, it's a hellscape. I like the day I get out of sports reporting will be the day I delete Twitter off my phone permanently and never get back on because I don't need it. But like it's interesting to dance that dance sometimes, and like to figure out, okay, like how do we do it strategically? Like my pushback occasionally is like, you also know, like, and you guys understand this, but like, you don't want me lying to you, right? Like you don't want me telling you false hope. You don't want me giving you this picture that isn't rooted in reality. And then you see at times, like, when it came to the end of the 2020 season and then all through 2021, where the direction of everything was straightforward, then everyone's like, well, what do you know about, like how shitty it is behind closed doors? And then all they wanted to hear was about how shitty it is behind closed doors. And you're like, okay, now you want to hear it. But other times when I say it, it's like they make the Danny Downer meme on Twitter. That became a big thing.
We had one here on the network for a while, Dan. Not gonna No, but another thing that I think has contributed to it, and you can speak on this. I mean, this is what you do professionally. I've always thought that there's been a disconnect with journalists, beat reporters initially against people like Phil and I that are kind of doing the same thing and talking about this, and breaking down tape. And, like Howard Stern, I listen to Howard Stern a lot, and he's always shitting on podcasters, and, they didn't go to college for this and all that. And do you think that there's a part of that sometimes when they look at it and they're like, they're fans and they're breaking it down, and they may really not know anything about TTNL, but they just think, oh, they're fanboys and they're just super positive about everything?
No, I would take all that case by case, and then, like that's where things get into a murky territory, because like there are a lot of people who do it real well, and there are a lot of people who are straight up posers and then puff their chests out and act like they're more than they are, and you're just like, you got to distinguish between that, and it gets increasingly hard in the landscape we're in, where everybody gets a seat at the table and it feels like everybody is on equal footing, and like the consumer isn't always capable of figuring out, well, wait a second, like so and so is much more skilled at this, much more experienced at this, much more in tune than this person. It's just like it's all put on the same buffet line, and you got to figure out what any of it is, right? Like, so like I think that's a case by case thing. Like,
sure.
That's what I'd say to that. Like I don't begrudge anybody that like puts in the work, knows what they're talking about, tries to inform themselves, has like busts their ass, is connected. Like, and like here's another thing that's interesting in my world now is like the fan now has so much more at their fingertips, right?
Exactly.
And so like I had this was like a message from somebody on Twitter. This is probably the middle of the season. that was like yelling at me for missing. I can't even remember what the development was, but it was missing something that came out at like 9:30 on a Thursday night. And they're like, I thought you were supposed to be following the Bears. Like I follow the Bears closer than you do. And I'm like, like he's probably not wrong, because like I literally have a wife and 2 children and a life and other things to do. And like, I can't, I probably, like that dude was probably glued to Twitter and glued to Bears news like 70 hours a week. Right. Sure.
No, they are.
So my 60 doesn't get there. And, things slip through the pipes every once in a while. And you're like, well, holy crap, like this is a different landscape, and you've got to figure out your own personal life balance within that. But there's so much that's happening, and it's so immediate, and it's so accessible through social media and other platforms. Like I can't follow all 65 guys on the roster on Instagram, and go through their feeds every single night to see it. Like, oh, they, on their Instagram stories.
Probably a good thing.
Right. Like, that's what I mean, right? Like, and so like there is a line you have to draw, but sometimes you miss stuff because that line is drawn where you've drawn it.
I got to say this, the integrity that you have coming on the show, and listen,
a lot of people wouldn't do it. I'm telling you. No,
I think totally a lot of fans, listen, I know we have a huge following and a fan base, and that's just, it is what it is. You could define it for what it is or whatever. I don't respect the media or the GMs, the agents, the players that stick their nose up, because the reality is the fans rule the day of this, your job, what we do. And it's so important that I remember talking to Kevin Fishbane. I'm like, it's so important that you understand that that guy that's checking Twitter 70 hours a day, right? He needs that understanding because he lives and breathes that Bears football. And I am not covering it like you are and have that opportunity. So there's a responsibility, almost like Spider-Man with great, right? And it's true because you say it at your fingertips. I can tell the story of my mom getting me the Bear Report in 1986 or 7, coming to my house in Connecticut. And that was like a gift. And I would go through every article, read every word, because I love this team so much, right? Now everything's at your finger, shows, analysts, and now it's up to those people. And Shane, me and Shane have had therapy conversations for each other because we spend too much time worrying about Joe Schmo hating and not the 55 other people.
Just like what Dan was talking about on Twitter.
Show, Dan.
Right.
I love what you do.
Right. Like that's it. Right.
That's really, we all have to be better at that. And I think you coming on here and being as open as a book just reflects on how Dion Miller speaks about you in prior. And I really respect you, Dan. I really do.
2 things to that end. Number 1, like I love conversation. Like this is fun. This is like a good back and forth. It's good feedback. This is so much more productive than any sort of back and forth you could have in the Twitter sphere, right? Like because everything gets twisted in Twitter, and then if you try to communicate, someone else is watching you that you don't even know who's watching you, and then they take what you said and they twist it out of context. And you're like, oh, what the fuck? Like that's not even what I was saying, and I wasn't even talking to you. How did you get in here?
Get down that rabbit hole.
They took my Twitter account away for almost 2 years. Tariq Cohen had a video caption contest, and I responded to it, and my radio was playing in my car in the background, and they clipped me for copyright because of the music that was on my radio. I lost my Twitter account for 2 years. I just got it back. Like, I don't know, Phil, was it 2 months ago? I had another account. So yeah, you'll have to follow me at Wazram, Dan. So I'll keep you updated. Don't listen to this, shitty Twitter guy. He's a jerk. I'll keep you updated.
Well, and then the other part of this last fall that I didn't realize until after the season was over and I got a chance to come up for air was that like some of the toxicity and the vitriol and stuff kind of it sped me up, and it's like I equate it to like a basketball game where you just needed the coach to call the 20 and go, So calm down, just calm down. Right? There were points where I was sped up and I couldn't calm down, and then I'd fire a thing back, and then it just becomes its own self-feeding, fire that you can't put out, and you're like, what the fuck are we doing? But again, these forums, I think it allows you to respond openly, organically, genuinely, and like the conversation gets you places, and so I'm always happy to do it. I'm always happy to devote a ton of time to it because it's fun, and I think ultimately, our goal is to help the Bears audience understand their team better, right? No matter what that looks like, let's help them understand the team better. And I think it's usually fruitful when you can have these in-depth, unfiltered discussions.
What's funny is all the shit that we've dealt with as people who cover the Bears and Bears fans. One thing that everybody's been in unison about was that Ted Phillips was shitty at his job. Seriously, it united Twitter. It united Bears Twitter.
It's when he was time they were united since '85 in the Super Bowl.
But I mean, think about a team president announcing his retirement got the fans excited. That's why I had to laugh when Danny Parkins was saying, Kevin Warren's it's not really going to move the meter. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about, Danny? That's craziness.
Worst take of 2023.
100%. I'm like, oh my God. That was just brutal.
And I'm telling you, it won't take long to see the results. It just won't. It won't be like a day where there's a headline. You're like, that's it. It's just going to be over time. You're just going to be like, oh my God, they're doing things properly, consistently. The failures are not as embarrassing. All these pie in the face moments will be gone, and you'll just be like, wow, they're running themselves like a well-oiled machine in a high, first-class organization that's doing everything right. And so, I mean, kind of the analogy I used is that not knocking Residence Inns. I stay at Residence Inns all the time when I'm on the road. There's a difference between the Residence Inn and the Ritz-Carlton, right? And you know it when you stay in both of them. You know what I mean? So hopefully the Bears are changing rooms, grabbing their bags and going across the street to the Ritz-Carlton in a way that will bring results that you feel on the field, most importantly. But look, dudes, we may be 5 years from now walking into some mega palace in Arlington Heights and going, can you fucking believe this place?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? After all those years covering football at Soldier Field, can you fucking believe this place?
Yeah.
And I truly think that's right within reach. And I'm sure you guys know today's news that they officially now own that property, and away we go. Obviously politics and a lot of things. There's going to be an obstacle course to navigate through in the coming months and years, but they're on their way, right? They're on their way to building that place, and it's got the potential to be grand.
Well, just the fact that you said being a professional organization, I think is so huge. We, again, talking about Chris Zorich, he was on here telling us about back when the Bears had some, I don't know, Phil, what was it when they were with that meal? And then
they had to pay for the previous day's lunch meal.
And it was $15.
Yeah, they were charging the players.
And then Richard Dent comes down to eat.
He forgot to pay the guy that collects the money.
Yeah, he forgot to pay the day before. So he comes down to eat.
And
they told Richard Dent, sorry, bro, you didn't pay. Hey, Richard Dent,
here's your money.
Zorich is we're sitting there this is the fucking really NFL. That's Richard Dent.
But they were hearing from other teams we have a spread. We go on the road. We're getting fed, and we're getting treated like this, and it just deteriorates the feeling of giving your life. Basically, I mean, the game of football is so violent. I'm not even a stretch in saying that. You're putting yourself on the line for an organization that doesn't give a fuck about you. That is the story of Ted Phillips. One former player said, Phil, think of The Office. It's Michael Scott running the team, and that's what it is. He doesn't. It's chaos and it's comedy at the. You can't believe the shit.
Did you know the game balls? When they hand a player a game ball, do you know that they get charged for that in Chicago? Dead serious. Rashid Davis, he's like, I got a game ball. He's like, I was like, well, this is amazing. And he goes, I looked down at my stub and I'm like, what the hell is this? and it was for the game ball.
So
$350 minus out of his paycheck for the game or whatever it was, something crazy. But those are the little things that you're talking about, Dan.
Little things.
Those little
and there's 5,000 of them, right?
Exactly.
And so if you improve 3,000 of them, all of a sudden look at the difference this can make. I'm going to tell you 2 quick stories that are like behind the curtain, the stuff that's been left on the cutting room floor of other things I've met. There's sort of a running joke in the media corps about the game day spread at Soldier Field in the press box, right? And it's like there's this meatball sub like that. It shows up pretty frequently in the rotation, and it's so sloppy, you know. It's just like it doesn't. You open the thing and you're like, oh god, are there meatballs in there? Like, it looks so gross, you know. And it's like served on this dry bread, whatever. Like, and so this comes across as like, okay, this is media complaining about how they're being fed. Well, you got to understand that in the press box at games at Soldier Field, the opposing team's front office is there, right? And so you've got 5 or 6 people that are coming down to get their lunch for the day, and they're opening this up and going, holy crap. So you can find this on Twitter because we went to Jerry World in October, right? That was Halloween weekend, the weekend before Halloween. And the spread there is unlike anything you've ever seen in your life. And I took a picture of the menu at the front of the Jerry World thing and put it right next to the picture of the meatball subs that they're serving at Soldier Field. Like, go look, compare the things that your options are. But like, right, like that's a little thing, right? And there's a front office guy from whatever team that comes into Soldier Field and is like, what the hell is this? The other story that someone in the building told me a couple years ago, they performed a beautiful renovation and upgraded the facilities, expanded at Hallis Hall. Ryan Pace did a stellar job in that regard of upgrading what was available to them facility wise. But then you go around the building, right? And there was all these new touches, and there's a wall at some point upstairs at Hallis Hall that's got this giant picture of a Lombardi trophy, right? That's what everybody in the NFL aspires to have. If you look, this is somebody inside the building said, like, I stopped one day and I looked hard at this Lombardi trophy, and I looked in the reflection of the base part of it and saw Julian Edelman holding it up.
Come on.
Right? So there's a picture of a Patriots player holding up the Lombardi trophy. Like, you literally won the Super Bowl in 1985 with one of the best teams in NFL history. Doesn't someone somewhere have a really cool picture from New Orleans on January 26, 1986 that they could have plastered to that wall in a way that you don't have Julian Edelman's reflection in the Lombardi trophy on your wall, right? Like, and like, does it matter? Does that translate into wins and losses? No, not directly, but it's just one of those things where you're like, what?
Yeah, it's
that little thing it's insurmountable. It really is. It's an embarrassment when you think about it. I got the experience. I had a whole show devoted gratefully to experience traveling with the team. I was able to travel with the team to Dallas, and I traveled with them. Did I ever witness the bureaucracy and embarrassment of a team that carries itself as if it's bigger and better and badder than anybody in such a manner where it was so uncomfortable? It was so, and I get it.
The TVs were locked onto soccer.
They had a VIP meet and greet, Dan, set up. These people, the man that brought me is a huge fan. He's our business manager, and they paid a pretty penny to the Bear Care Gala to experience this. This is a Bears experience, and I'll keep it real quick. But there's a VIP meet and greet. We pull up to Hallis Hall. We're there 10 minutes early because I hate being late, and neither does Jim. We get there, and no one's there. We walk in the building with some guy. He lets us in. We're waiting in the hallway, waiting. It's 7 minutes late, and the lady comes. They pick us up. They put us in a room. We're supposed to have a VIP meet and greet. No one showed up. The TV doesn't turn on, and the only channel that you could watch was a soccer game. And I'm like, I'm in the house of Hallis, and how weird is this? That all I could get on the TV is my least favorite fucking game in the world is soccer.
Practice is going on, and they pull all the shades.
Practice is going on. It's a walkthrough, Dan. We're about to get on a bus to go to the airport. It's the walkthrough. They pull the shades down like there's some secret conspiracy play that's going to be. Then we're going to give up. I'm like,
when was this?
This was that the day we go out, that Saturday.
The right before the Dallas, it was for the Dallas game this year.
Dallas 2 months ago, October this year. All right.
Yes. And I'm like, this is an embarrassment. Now, I was warned by 3 former Bears. Like, you're going to see. I know you, Phil. You're going to see. They were so right. One of them won't be afraid if I use his name, and it's because they offered to pay him $15.
I was going to say, does it rhyme with boots?
Yeah, it does. It does. So all I could say was he was
Take
right.
it with a grain of salt, Dan.
Holy. Exactly. It's just, you got to be better. The little things matter in football. And
there it is.
It is. I will say the Bears fed you pretty well on the plane. I never experienced that before, but other than I can't speak to but these little things do matter.
Here comes the scroll. Here comes the scroll.
Oh! Yeah.
Listen, I was broadcasting a game, Division II football game, and they fucking put out a spread that I couldn't believe. So to see that, and some fans will be like, "What are you complaining about? You're coming."
We had Zach Pearson on, and I think it was him saying, he's like, "Yeah, and the
heat and
when the weather is warm, they have the heat on, and when it's freezing in the winter, they'll have the air conditioning on up in the."
Well, and some of the right, like in some of the, Soldier Field is its own beast, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully, that's going to be a rear view beast at some point, because it's unfortunate that that venue has underachieved for what it could be. And the amount of space that's available and the number of things you could have done to make it more of a modern day experience, right? Like, you guys know what it's like in other places, and you go other places and you're like, well, this is 2022 football. It's not just a game. It's an entire event. It's an entire experience. It's everything that you want to feel nowadays. And hopefully we're on our moving walkway to get there.
Yeah. It's just like fans going to, Phil's in Connecticut. I'm in New York. You can't.
Oh, did he freeze for you, Dan?
He sure did.
Be it every train froze.
Yeah, he froze.
Am I back?
You're back right now.
Oh, okay.
But now,
yeah, my bad.
Go ahead.
I'm freezing again.
You can't be at, and then you.
Oh, I said, yeah, I'm in New York. Phil's in Connecticut. We can't be at all the training camp practices and stuff like that when we'd love to be. But I said, but yeah, you look at New England, Minnesota. They're streaming portions of practice and in their family fest for the fans. And I said, this is the type of stuff that I hope that Kevin Warren starts to incorporate. We have, boots on the ground at most training camp practices, people that do live in Chicago, and they're popping their phones out of their hoodies really quick. And, the Gestapo's coming asking for their phone. And I'm like,
give me your phone.
Are you really worried about
deleting it?
Yeah. Oh, somebody might take Santa's sleigh from us.
They might have been 2-15 if that play that was taking a picture of at training camp had gotten out in the public knowledge. So that like there's a big difference between 2-15 and 3-14, and sometimes it's that video that's taken at training camp that gets the team over the hump for that third win.
It's a travesty. We live in the backyard over here in New England. They stream their whole fucking preseason practice.
Yeah,
they understand that there's an obsession for the Chicago Bears, just like there is one for the New England Patriots, and they embrace that, and they actually capitalize on giving the fan a taste because. Listen, we have fans all over the world. I can see Logan Frost. He's over in the Philippines right now. We got people over in Scotland, Ireland, Russia that listen to this show religiously. We had Hans fly into Germany just to come to our tailgate and meet us because he's a Bears fan.
Yeah.
He found us because of the Bears. That's the one unifying sauce in the meatballs is the Bears. And the reality is the Chicago Bears. And I hope this gets to Kevin Warren. I've talked to Chris Sorge and everybody else. I hope we can get Kevin on this show. That would be amazing. And it would just break through some of these things. But if not, that's fine. I just hope he understands that it's so important. That little thing is to embrace and allow the fans to to see their team and share a highlight catch of Cole Kmet in his shoulder pads and helmet, July 23rd. And wow, it just went all over the internet because Bears fans are excited. And that helps sell tickets. That helps build camaraderie. That helps build and forge different avenues of getting this crazy confusion to an answer.
I mean, I'll say this. Kevin understands content. He understands good content. I think that you're going, like, you can go through the things that they've done in Minnesota with the Vikings, with their Vikings Entertainment Network and all the things that they produce. And you can use that as like a sneak preview for what you'll probably see once the ship gets away from the dock and is out sailing, because like Kevin knows that goes a long way, you know, and that like those are going to be steps that are made to enhance that experience. Like, it's all about enhancing the experience. And again, the ultimate experience enhancer is having a football team that plays in the playoffs 5 out of 7 years, right? And we're all hoping that day comes where those conversations are a little bit more upbeat, and you know, people are gonna be like, fuck, Wiederer's too optimistic. He's glowing too much because they win too much, right? Like, maybe we'll get to that day at some point.
Listen, if he hasn't changed your mind about Dan Wiederer tonight, I know he came on last time and I thought he changed a lot of people's mind, but tonight, I think in the offseason and the future of the Chicago Bears and where it is, I have the utmost confidence in you guys on the beat report that are doing this job and asking those questions about the little things, because that's really going to be the stepping stone for this offseason in the future. You know,
you got to be honest though. We do critique their questions live on air when they have like,
look, I'm cool with that. Like,
Pat Finley got a major L when he asked Justin how it affects him putting on that big. How's the big coat when it's windy help you, Justin? I'm like, really, Pat? It's fucking cold, Dad. I'm wearing a jacket. Jeez.
You could do it. Yeah, you could have plenty of fun with a live critiquing of the questions. Believe me.
When we can hear them.
I
got to get you guys better
mics
in there.
I'm not always the most well liked after press conferences when I rip on a few questions myself. People in the room will tell you that, but that's all right.
Yeah,
I thought you did a great job.
You can feel like you and Leisure usually. I think you and Leisure, you guys will go at them pretty good. So I think that's what needs to happen.
That.
Look, I also said, you guys mentioned him a little while ago. Herb is a rising star at knowing how to play that game and dance that dance and ask very direct questions in a non-combative and curious way. Like he's got a skill at it, and I tell him that all the time. I'm like, man, like you've got a chance to do some things within these walls here at Hallis Hall that are going to distinguish you, and like don't take it for granted.
Yeah,
I like the fact that you fire straight. I know you're able to praise people on the beat. I like where we are in your hands here, and you have an experience with Kevin Warren. Courtney has an experience with him, so you kind of know that you're coming from a place of knowledge and understanding. We're lucky that we have just a tremendous human being in Chris Zorich on our network, and you know, just him being able to share his truths and be so not afraid to talk about his experience with the Bears, but also the hope that the Bears fans should have with Kevin Warren coming in here. He basically is echoing what you have said. And I can totally make it happen if you wanted Chris to come on your show with you guys and talk about it. But that's a whole nother story. But you coming on here tonight, you've spent 2 hours with us breaking down the Chicago Bears.
We all needed a break from our crazy kids by the sound of it.
God bless my wife for taking carrying the load tonight.
Thank her.
NyQuil dart to the neck never hurts them.
I thank you so much for jumping on here, talking Bears. We'll have to have you closer to the draft or after the draft, Shane.
Do you have any of your draft plans, what you guys will be doing or anything like
Well,
that?
so
yet,
Big Z will be out in Kansas City. So he'll be our boots on the ground where the prospects are. I will be at House Hall with Colleen Kane, and we'll be covering the front office coming down to talk to us after the picks are made.
Well, Kevin will be in charge then, though. So maybe you guys will have a little bit nicer food spread.
They actually do all right on draft weekend. They bring stuff down from the in-house cafeteria there, which is actually pretty good.
Oh, good.
It's definitely better than that picture that you saw there. So they do it right at times. It'll probably be pretty nice. Yeah.
Dion will bring you guys some cookies. I know she makes some good cookies.
She makes a lot. She bakes very well, and it does not go unnoticed on some Wednesdays when you pop in there and you're like, all right, like let's get to lunchtime so that we can get to this dessert.
Nice.
Well, we definitely got to have you back on, and just really from the bottom of our heart, thank you for coming on and spending so much time talking about the Chicago Bears and the offseason and the confusion. I think you hit it out of the park right from the get-go in Justin Field. And I think we talked about it truthfully. I think you're very fair. I'll say it for the record. I have your back 100% because I am critical of Justin.
Well, you got to be. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, it's healthy.
It's totally healthy. And when you ask these questions, the ultimate equalizer in the NFL is the quarterback. It's always going to be that way. So we've missed. We could have had Pat Mahomes. How would this have been different? All these questions were always in. We could have.
Before we let him go, Phil, we have to put him on the spot big time with this one. Sam Mustipher, is he the starting center for the Bears in 2023?
I don't think he'll be the starting center. I think he will be on the roster. I think he's a guy that provides depth and leadership and value in a lot of ways. I think they'll try to find a way to who knows what happens with Lucas Patrick too on that topic on where his place is going forward. So
you hear a knock at your door, that's just Olin. It's fine. It's cool.
Isn't Sam like he's exclusive or restricted free agent?
Don't they not have at this point? I don't think.
Are you sure? I thought I read that when I was looking at the spot rack.
Maybe he is. Yeah, I could look it up.
Check that because I was like, oh, there's no way they're gonna let him go because they.
I thought that was last year.
It might have been.
I mean, he's a good culture guy, and he became a scapegoat for a lot of things that weren't his issue. But the Bears are in a position where if you can find upgrades at every single position on the roster, you go.
You got to do it.
Yeah, he's restricted, not exclusive. Yeah.
So he'll be back.
Yeah, he'll be back.
And Dan, I hope you'll be back. We had a lot of fun tonight. Major props to you again. Is there anything? I know you've been teasing this article that's coming. I'm excited about it because I think it's going to be from what you're sharing, and it's giving you some spoilers tonight. If you're just tuning in, we're with the great Dan Wiederer of the Chicago Tribune. He's also the host at the Take the North pod. Check him out there. But you're also going to have this big article that's going to come out, next month?
The hope is shortly after the combine ends. So it'll give me a little bit more time to get some chatter in Indy from people a lot of people to talk with down there and continue filling out what is a pretty comprehensive look at the highs, lows, and everything else of where Justin is. And then obviously how that sets the table for 2023, which again, I think we're all eager to see what that looks like at the end of the 2023 season.
Will you be boots on the ground at the combine?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's there's 2 trips coming up in the next 6 weeks. The combine, which is the one where you really have to
that's where it all starts, yeah.
To grind it and work it, and then the owners' meetings, which will be out in Arizona, and that's a lot more casual and laid back, but also super valuable in terms of the time that you get with people in a setting where they've got time to talk to you and can share things, and you gain a lot from being in those 2 settings. So I'm excited. That's the part of the off season that's a lot of fun to navigate.
Tell Haw to get over here too. We'll get his ass straightened out with the fans too, Dan.
We gotta There's one quick thing though. I'm sorry. You mentioned it before, and we gotta just highlight. I want your highlighted thoughts on this. How, in your mind, because you mentioned it as Ryan Poles is gonna have so much to do. How big is it that Ian Cunningham is still here with Ryan Poles?
Well, there's multiple layers to that. The first part is it's very significant in being able to have a guy you trust handle a lot of duties and a lot of responsibilities. The second part of this is that if Ian then goes out and gets a general manager job next year, because he's been with the Bears for 2 years, the Bears will get a comp pick back for that in the draft. And so that's no small feat either. It might turn into a day 3 guy that you can turn into a starter because you were able to keep him one more year than maybe you thought you were going to be able to. So. Look, like Ian is very well respected around the league. He's been a rising star for a while. Him and Ryan, like when they both got here to Chicago and their families were still finishing the school year back where they lived together. I mean, they were in an apartment together, basically doing the roommates thing again. And they
would
built.
Koziol be next in line for that if he left? You think Koziol?
Probably. It'd be interesting. Jeff King's on their radar there. He's a holdover from the previous regime. You know, they've got some talented people inside there. And now again, look, like now you got to hit for average. That's what's next.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much, Dan. Thank your wife for taking care of the kids as well. And really appreciate you coming on, and we'll get you back on again. Check your Instagram DM.
Changing minds and winning hearts. You know, that's what I do. So
you're like, look at this stalker. Jeez.
It was only a couple. I was so praising him the last time. I wrote a nice personal message to you because that
was spring break.
Now, now he's even better.
I'm going to get on there right when I log off and I'll check it.
You're the man. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, Dan.
Dan Wiederer. Well, Dan Wiederer again. If you're listening on the podcast, that was 2 hours of amazing Bears talk with a guy that I think gets a bad rap. I mean, we talked about it a little bit. His what is it when he go into the priest and you confession?
Well,
confession
it's
getting who he is.
It's to make a Stern reference. It's the Benji Bronk vortex. You get sucked into it. We do it here. There'll be an asshole in the chat, and the 900 people that are positive. You know, you're not focusing on them. You see the one asshole in the chat, and then I'll call his mother a cunt or whatever. You know, that's where it goes. We go down that hole. But yeah, it's tough. And then Twitter is like that a lot too. You know, it's crazy. There's a lot of people that just live to, prod and stick the needle. And, finally when you punch them in the face, you're like, what did I do? That's what it is. But it's part of the process. Hey, the way that I look at it is if you don't have haters, you're doing it wrong.
Absolutely.
That's why there's a lot of people that fucking hate you and I, but that means we're doing it right.
The visors and all of these advisors hate us, but that was for you, Sheree. The reality, I want to say this about that interview. I've been doing this a long time. I actually, Howard Stern, went to school for broadcasting. And
no, but Phil, you know what I'm talking about. What? We'll talk about there's been different beat reporters that we've talked to that frown upon us. And it's my point. And hopefully Dan didn't look at it as my point as being disrespectful, but I think that there is so many of not even just the old guard that they frown on what we're doing essentially the same thing that they're doing. And I think a lot of people out there frown upon it because we may not have paid our dues, but we've paid our dues in different ways. I've been here every motherfucking day with this team, whereas somebody like Josh Schrock came from, out west last year. So he hasn't. I don't want to hear him talking down to the fucking Bears fans. That's the shit. And when I brought that up with Dan, that's the thing. Dan's fallen in the trap. David Hawes fallen in the trap. Brad Biggs falls into it daily where, these fans, they just, they think they're going to. No, the fans are what's clicking on your story that you're doing in a month. You know what I mean? It's all of that. So, yes, there's shitty fans, but there's also shitty beat reporters. It works both ways. So that's the thing.
You're 100% right. it's such a fine line, but I thought Dan, in his admission, just showed the kind of integrity of who he is. You're right. I got to look at my tone. We all get sucked into this vortex. It's perfect. The Benji vortex of the negativity. And I come off as arrogant sometimes, right? But nobody's putting in the work. I'm putting in the work. I'm watching the tape. I'm fucking not afraid to do a parody song one week and write a fucking amazing open the next. These things matter. The little things that got so passed over by Ted Phillips, the little things matter at TTNL. So I've never once left a show and was mad at anybody. Never once.
You didn't fuck
on
up your-
TTNL.
You didn't fuck up your garden.
No,
After the
I
cold
never
snap?
once. I got emotional at the old network, and feelings were hurt because you could see a good versus a bad, an evil versus just a non-caring person, phoniness, a shoe salesman, just like Nagy. You saw that stuff. I feel I come onto this show, and so do you, because we've spoken about it. I spoke for probably 3 hours with Chris Zorge today. We're friends, and friends are going to debate, argue, laugh, make jokes, poke fun, and just being honest with your opinions and not flip-flopping and being able to be human and admit, you know what, I got to do a better job of that. I know I have a responsibility to a family here, but also I don't overlook HL Priest and Bullets and Will Mookie Hill and Sharif and every one of you, Jose Torre.
It was fucking a guy when I was like doing a little deep dive into that shit. He was, he fucking hurt me significantly,
It's a responsibility to the family of fans that we have. And I think what we did, I think Dan is going to appreciate it, because sometimes you have to be put into a place where you're thinking like, oh shit, you're right. That's why you brought up
Grody. That's
Grody.
He responded to. That's why I told him. I said, get David Haw on here. We'll straighten his ass out with the fans too.
Exactly.
But it's the truth. And I mean,
I told David Kaplan I just disliked him.
Well, that's the thing, Phil.
It's like a brother to me.
Everybody nowadays in this environment that we're in thinks if you're critical at all, that you hate the person for eternity and there's no way to recover from it. You and I have lived it here. If you and I, like the visor stuff, you know what I mean? We'll get DMs. You guys good? Everything, stuff like that. You and I have went head to head on a ton of stuff, but it's never gotten personal. We get the stage that we're on, but we're also going to be brutally honest with one another. I've said shit to you that you haven't want to hear, and not vice versa. You and I have had lots of those talks, but it's healthy. And for Dan, I don't agree with everything that Dan says. I don't, but that's fine. That is what life is all about. That's, you go back to Ryan Pace, and that's consensus on a quarterback. I don't want consensus on a quarterback. Right. We're doing Draft Mob tomorrow night. Yep. And breaking news, Cars will be on with us. So if you're a patron, you will get that. We're going to be breaking down Miles Murphy and Brian Brzee. So that's going to be fun. But there's not consensus among us of Miles Murphy. But that's healthy. And that's what you want. And that's, if everybody is agreeing on everything all the time, that's an organization, that is a business that's going to fail 100% every time.
Absolutely. I know some of you understand. I think some of you are saying it. I'm a confident guy because I put the work in. That's it. I surrounded myself with good people. Fucking Ivan Vargas cutting tape. I've said to Ivan, I believe in you. I know I see talent. I believe in surrounding yourself. And have I made mistakes? Of course.
So, man, I fucked up.
Fucked up with putting Claudio as a moderator. He can't even open the show.
Stomping that ass on these opens.
But it's the little things, surrounding yourself with those types of people that are going to go the extra mile. I think some of you understand the difference of arrogance and confidence. I know we're the originators, and that's how I'll always be. I'm going to try some things. Shane will be like, you sure? Yeah, go for it, dude. And that's it. Every fucking thing that we do on this network is an original, from the music to the tape breakdowns. I mean, I was breaking down the fucking tape before all of these motherfuckers are breaking. It's history. Obviously deleted. It pisses me the fuck off because there's a lot of great shit that I said, right, wrong, or indifferent.
I love all.
Not that, Cherie. We're talking football. Jesus.
But we got Jackal here, who is a friend first that loved. He was a fan of the show. Bring him out. There he is.
What's up, boys?
So
good get on locking in Wiederer.
Yeah, locking in Wiederer.
Gotta give you some props, my man.
Yeah, you're welcome, man. Shooting it straight. Thank you. It was he's always fun to listen to. You know, it's being a contrarian is. I don't think that's his role. I think he just shoots it straight. You know,
I think it matters to him, and I think he's passionate about what he does. And listen, hopefully, I don't think Dan will mind me speaking on this, Jackal. It made me laugh when you shared the text with, "Hey, what are we going to be?" Dan wants to know. He's a stickler for being prepared.
Yeah.
And he wanted to know if there's anything specifically that we're going to talk about. And initially I laughed at it. And then a couple hours later, I thought back to it. I'm like, wow, that's super fucking professional that he's taking our show that serious, that he wants to be completely prepared for it. So, you know, like I said, you don't have to, just because you don't agree with some football takes with Dan Wiederer doesn't mean that he's a lifelong asshole. That's you judging a person. And I'm bad at that. I get pissed off. Like, you guys have seen me lose my shit, like in the green room, where we came from. You guys all probably experienced that when that whole thing was going down. But it's, Phil brought it up and it was a great point. We have to be better. Is Ivan sleeping?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm looking over. I'm looking over at the chat. No, definitely not. I'm looking over at the chat right now.
I think you have to have a great mix when it comes to the beat. And I don't know. I come away, and I'm not saying this, and I'm not blowing smoke. It's hard to understand and look in the mirror and say, I gotta be better. That is a lot of care. And to your point, if you don't have haters, you're probably not good at what you do. And those things are important. And Dan is speaking his truth. I know he's not the Mike North of contrarian, non-knowing of football. Like, I'm just gonna go the opposite way, and that's gonna get clicks. That's one method. I'm not hating. I'm just saying that's a method of doing it. Dan has his opinion, and sometimes tone is critical because you don't want to come off like, I don't give a fuck what Logan Frost has to say in text. Like, on the show, I could say it and everyone knows the content, or should know. I would say 85% of people know. The context of my tone is being sarcastic or trying to be funny. We all say things that are our thing. I think if somebody's saying, you know what, I left that show like Mark Grody did, and I got to be better with my tone and understanding that, like Brad Biggs is terrible at it. He just comes off as a pompous asshole, and that's the way he goes. And if he doesn't care about it, I don't believe it.
Well, and that's the
thing. I think we all care. Even Greg Braggs will say, I don't care if nobody he spends more time caring about who's like, we all do. If you can admit that, then take a look at, and I have to do it too sometimes. Like I was very passionate about my football take about the visor, and that's how I felt about it. I've never changed from that. And the narrative and the twist and the epilepsy and all that shit kind of skewed the whole conversation and then you get passionate about it. So you want to speak about it. And I've never once, I can honestly say, have been directed by the chat or the fans of what we're going to talk about, because there is no script. There isn't. I didn't prepare one question or write down a question for Dan or what we're going to say tonight. We went 2 hours with Dan without a break.
Yeah.
It says a lot about him too.
In all the years that we've done this, Phil, we've never wrote anything down. I know
when I first started, I'll be honest, like, I can't remember what guest we were going to have on at the old network. And I wrote down some football questions because I wasn't used to 3 men. Like Aldo was going to jump in, this one, you were going to jump in, this.
We clip that.
I got to walk.
I looked at Ivan and I'm like, either he's going to say it or I'm going to.
I gotta mute it. I got it.
Well, that's part of the thing. There is a.
Did they hurt you significantly, Phil? Or go ahead.
I think there is a very. I think the most educated TTNL fan knows there's a smooth cohesiveness between Shane and my flow with one another. And when we add more personalities to it, if they can't handle getting their balls broken, you find out real quick. Like, and the chat too, I don't think Shane or I has ever worried about how many fans we've offended.
I personally sleep like a fucking baby at night. Yeah, I could give 2 fucks.
But I know that the conversation on the Bears is going to be the most informed, passionate, and truthful one out there because we don't have an agenda. And as much as I love David Montgomery, I'm going to be critical of David Montgomery based on the tape or the performance. There's no ass kissing here. There never will be. There's never been a moment of meatballing with me and Shane just agreeing. It just never will be. And
not even when football fucking genius savant Mike Brez said that. Remember that? Fuck is that?
Forgot about this. Yes, we're just gonna agree and go. That's just not it. I'm old enough to remember. I know someone's cutting something. Cheese, Jackal. I'm older.
Lee, what the hell is going on?
Oh, it's just fucking so funny hearing it over.
What was that?
It's you.
That was you, dude. Yeah.
I didn't hear anything. It just went black.
No.
The screen went black. No.
Oh, it was a clip.
Yeah.
No, I saw the clip. It was the.
I didn't see the clip.
The KD clip.
Play it again. I didn't see it.
Oh, I played the Kenneth Davis clip. I thought, Jackal, you played something though, right? In the background.
Accidentally, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I've seen it happen on our end where it goes.
Oh, right here.
Lee, what the hell is going on?
Used to 3 men. Like, I don't get it. You're so bad.
It's just great. It writes itself. I don't know.
Anyway, the point I'm trying to make for you fans is I appreciate you. And I hope you are like Angelo and think the show or the clip or whatever we're doing is fantastic. I am so blown away sometimes at all of the pieces, the little pieces, whether it be Cool Kennedy's music or lyrics or Ron G's backgrounds or Caden Whitlow's creative graphics and intros, or Jackal getting guests on here, or Shane coming up with a great idea or drop, or Ivan producing an open or video. All of you guys, Claudio as well, do such a great job with this show. And that's where I'll stand. I'm getting too old for this shit. Like Riggs in Lethal Weapon, right? I just want this Chicago Bears team and organization to do the little things right, because I really believe that we're going to get on that horse and ride.
That's what I thought you were doing. I thought you were announcing your retirement there for a second.
I'm almost going to announce it. I won't be like Mel Kiper, who said what's his name, that he would retire.
Jimmy Clausen.
Jimmy Clausen wasn't a good quarterback.
Jesus.
we got to take Mel Kiper like Sex Panther. You know what I'm talking about? It's like 60% of the time he's probably going to be fucking wrong anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
I respect Mel Kiper. I really do, because he's the OG, the original gangster of doing this. I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah, what impresses me about him, but I mean, some of his takes are, listen, he knows people, and I think he's trying to get people pushed up, publicly.
Totally
but
agree.
There's not a fucking player you can't ask that dude about that he doesn't have a synopsis on. It is amazing. I mean, it's great.
Fantastic hair. Like the hair is awesome. I mean, like classic.
No, the guy is a fucking savant with names. It really is. If you can't,
I don't know how the fuck he eats pumpkin pie every day. God damn. He eats a pumpkin pie every day.
The fuck is wrong with
Jeepers Creepers?
Just the filling. Yeah, he takes some of the filling out and squirts the whipped cream on it every bite. Yeah, it's crazy.
Listen,
clip it.
I don't get it either. I do. I wasn't used to three men. Like,
hey, it's okay, dude. I mean,
there you go. Yep, I like it.
I'm gonna have to string together a few of those clips. I was coming on a plane. I wasn't used to three men.
Oh my fucking god! Your lunch with Mary.
I gotta tweet that out, right? Tag Larry Bear.
I think you kind of have to,
right? Jackal, can you text me that clip?
Oh,
that's hilarious.
That's the fun stuff on this show. And
listen, awesome.
It's the end of the season. Claudio couldn't be here tonight. Sure, he'll be back. I hope all is well with him.
So let's get the auction underway. On the first cow here, who's got 55? 55.
Is that what he was doing tonight? Is he doing? Oh, okay. There was something else that came up. I got it up. Where is it?
I fucked your mom.
Come on, Claudio. Could someone clip just? We need the. Could someone do me a favor?
I can't do it, man.
Trim the Zorich one, the Philip. Just get Ted laughing.
Oh yeah, the 27-year-old version of Kevin Warren when he was negotiating, and what was that like?
Just that. So when we have some of these guests, we just get that short one and put Ted laughing.
He knows I'm coming. That's why.
I wasn't used to three men. Like, Jesus. Coming on the plane after.
This new computer makes it so much easier.
I love Cherie's mom.
Oh, Jesus.
You know how I feel about stats. Really, stats are for losers.
Speaking of stats are for losers, go to the swag shop, ttnlswag.com. Get yourself Stats are for Losers or Smartest Man t-shirt. I know Alex Acevedo's been burning the candles at night to get a Jackal Don't Do Shit t-shirt up there for Logan Frost.
Yes, sir.
And there's supposed to be a Bears nerd one in production too that I think I handed off to him. Yeah.
Could we get a Millhouse is Gone? Like the witch?
We might have to get a holy fuck your lunch with Larry t-shirt.
Dan pointing at the
You're oh my fucking God. Your lunch with Larry.
Oh, you're on the air, baby.
Yes. Listen, it's that time of the show. We waxed poetic. We had fun. Really great interview with Dan Wiederer of the Chicago Tribune. If you're just tuning in now, you're really going to have to go back and set your time or whatever to watch that during tomorrow, lunch, whatever you're doing. If you're working, are you working the third shift with our guy, Larry Funkster Jones? We'll be watching this show tonight.
There's hope, guys.
Yes, there is hope. Speaking of hope, we're going to send the shout outs right now. Right?
Shout out Tape Never Lies. Shout out. I know you hear me, baby. Shout out. I know you see me, baby. Shout out. We gotta holler at you. Keep it 100 crew. Gotta show love too. Shout out. I know you hear me, baby. Shout out. I know you see me, baby. Shout out. We gotta holler at you. Keep it 100 crew. Gotta show love too. From the fans in the stands to the follows on the gram. Thanks for your support, showing love in the DM. We stay Spencer strong, fight together till the end. Now it's time to shout out worldwide friends and fam. Like
the network that keeps it real, 100 crew. So many in the world that I gotta show love to. But some this policy the show is at its end. But for me it's so important to thank the charter members and the fans. Build the network, speak the truth through the tape. Never run around the truth, no narratives we create. Set them straight, no bubble screen on 4th and 8. Audio Jane getting nervous cause keeping them up too late. That's it, no more to say to get the shot of vital. But hurry up cause the postman's getting homicidal.
Shout out. I know you hear me, baby. Shout out. I know you see me, baby. Shout out. We gotta holler at you. Keep it 100 crew. Gotta show love too. Shout out. I know you hear me, baby. Shout out. I know you see me, baby. Shout out. We gotta holler at you. Keep it 100 crew. Gotta show love too.
The network that keeps it real. Sense is strong.
No, we're very economical, my family.
Keep it economical in this family tonight. Sorry, shout outs here. I know you three were with us, Jackal in and out, hustling for the kids or whatever.
Yes, sir.
Ivan and Cherie producing, handling the chat, sitting in the background.
Definitely not sleeping. Definitely not asleep.
It was the glare going off your glasses, I think. I was like, is that motherfucker sleeping?
Yeah.
I fucked your mom.
Bratcher's been asleep for 3 fucking months. I gotta share this right before we do the shout outs.
Go ahead.
I gotta give Alan Bratcher a shout out. Not only did he deny a new patron one-time access to our all access Facebook page after the poor guy resubmitted to join it a second time, Alan also declined him 12 hours later again. So I text him, I'm like, Alan, this guy's a patron. What are you like? Oh, I didn't want you to get mad at me for adding people that aren't patrons.
Critical thinker, that one.
Oh boy, Angelo, do you remember Greg Braggs?
No.
Looks like a thumb. It kind of looks like a thumb.
Oh my God, Cherie, the lady of the house,
the
got any
moderator.
shout out.
Yeah, shout out to Claudio for not being here. Let me get my shine on. No.
He's been replaced.
Look at you.
No, shout out to you guys. You know, Wednesdays I look forward to because we have fun, get to hang out. You know, y'all.
Fuck yourself.
Cars.
That's why you
Hang on.
It's cars.
So no, shout out to you guys for always making Wednesday nights enjoyable. It's hump day, so thanks for all that you all do. So my shout out to y'all.
Thank you, Cherie. You're honestly such a great human being. In all honesty, I appreciate.
Not bad, Cherie. You're not bad.
Thanks, Frank.
Cherie, you're going to be in charge of the TTNL party and celebrity get together for next year.
Okay.
One of the chairmen.
Okay, y'all just give me Thomas Jones' number. That's all.
We're auctioning off a date with Cherie at the tailgate.
Date with Cherie.
Yep.
The weekend that we come out.
All the money that we raise goes directly to Cherie. So it's even better.
Having to go on this date, yeah.
That's right.
A decent proposal. What's going on?
Yeah.
We start out with a boat
Sounds like
tour.
pimping, Jack. So that's
That's what it sounded like, right? I'm like, what?
Sunset boat tour next to Soldier Field for some drinks.
Motorboat
and
tour.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Vikings. Hey,
Bill's the only one that got my joke.
I totally get it.
He knows I'm coming. That's why.
Jesus.
Great stuff. We appreciate you. I like that idea, Shay. But we
Yeah.
should give the money to charity. First, pay for the date with the money that we get. Then the rest goes to charity.
Cherie would rather have it. Right, Cherie.
Pay my rent.
I'm gonna have to go on the date with some rando at least. Pay me.
Right.
All right.
Doing something strange.
Cherie gets the money. Show her the money.
Angelo
Ivan.
just texted me. He wants to know where he signs up for this.
That'd be an interesting.
I love all.
Never mind.
He's a very nice dick that any woman would love. Yeah, there you go.
You're all over the map.
Apparently, he'll do
Yeah.
anything for $1,000. So.
Guess so.
This guy might get in.
I'm just a fan. I'm not a football evaluator.
Only
there you
fan.
Free and George out on the town. That would
I
be
mean, that McCaskey money, I don't think I'm
You might have to take one for the team, Cherie. For sure, you know.
I don't even know if you have to take anything. You know.
Jack.
I know some.
Add it up.
I know some you're definitely going to be a fan of, George. Cherie, get over there.
It was fucking a guy when I was like doing a little deep dive into that shit. He was, you know, he fucking hurt me significantly, you know. I just want the last one.
Yeah, we got to cut it to the last part of that too.
I'm so demoralized because that one hurt. That was the end of the fantasy season.
What?
Yeah, that was a bad day.
Ivan Vargas, you have any shout outs?
No, I'll keep it short. Shout out you guys. Shout out everybody in the chat. Shout out Dan Wiederer for a great interview. And yeah, let's keep it going. Good night. Good show.
Great night. Great interview. Great stuff, Ivan. Chris Jackal, you do shit sometimes.
Hey, once in a while, you know. No, I shout out you guys. It's always a pleasure to see you guys do your thing. When I'm not here in the background, I'm definitely enjoying it as a fan, you know. So, fucking the show was great tonight. Dan Wiederer, I mean, he was just amazing. I gotta say, coming on, giving us 120 minutes, 2 hours of just back and forth with you guys, honesty, which is great, you know, and that's what this is all about here. Bears talk, and just its real format, unedited, unfiltered, unadult, you know, just shooting from the hip, telling it like it is with some actual football acumen behind it. It was a great conversation tonight, so I was really glad to sit here and listen. So thank you to Dan for coming on, and thanks for you guys for just kind of, you know, going back and playing a little, you know, pickleball, ping pong, whatever it is these days these cats are playing. And, you know, so it was just a great show all in all. So, and lastly, yesterday was Valentine's Day, I think. If you're thinking about somebody, you know, just reach out, say hello. You know, a lot of shit going on in this world, in our country, with fucking Ohio, with the fucking gas chemicals and whatever the fuck's in the sky, and Michigan State and whatever other train derailment and whatever else is going on. Just say hello to somebody.
Shot down.
Yeah, who knows? It's fucking wild. And we got, you know, Bears football, but, you know, more importantly, real life shit happening. So just reach out and say hello to somebody. You never know, may make their day.
Oh my fucking God. Your lunch with Mary.
I fucking love that, man. You gotta, I'm gonna send that to him too.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
You gotta. It's definite.
Too late to send it to him.
I was trying to.
Probably just sat down for nice little nightcap with his wife and plays that on his phone.
Get in somebody's ass today.
I wasn't used to 3 men. Like,
get him late tonight.
I can't. We have no more space.
Oh no,
that's crazy. I'm trying to upload the picture, the thumbnail.
Delete the visor video.
What's that?
Delete the visor video.
Oh, where? Yeah, delete that for me. Sorry, I'll do it. I didn't see that. We deleted the open too tonight, right?
Yeah, I deleted it. Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, so I was trying to upload the.
Don't get rid of
I
that.
wasn't used to 3 men. Like, I wasn't gonna delete that. Listen, if you're not a patron, get over to the tapeneverlies.com tomorrow night on Draft Mob.
With the B.
The B will be in the house. Nerd alerts will be thrown out, and swears will be run, and touching yourself.
What the fuck is happening right now?
There'll be a lot of stuff.
We gotta inform Jackal. Post game of that one.
Ryan Brees.
Oh my God.
And Miles Murphy.
I love Ivan. Nobody can see Ivan.
Draft breakdown tomorrow night.
Jackal, you just wait.
Become a patron at the tapeneverlies.com. The patron success is going to be there.
Draft Mob starts now.
There you go. Tomorrow night, not now, we'll be touching on a lot of topics when it comes to Lucy and Miles Murphy, and breaking down the tape of the college tape, showing you what it is that these guys do or don't do, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Always checking out the tape of the draft prospects while taking your questions, your thoughts on those prospects to get you ready for the draft. Shane Marsaw, do you have any shout outs?
I do. I'm going to shout out our guy, Johnny Santino. I got home the other day and looked out on my front deck, and I saw a large, I'm not going to say package because somebody will cut that, parcel box, cardboard box on my front deck. Yeah, so I brought it inside there after I got home and opened it up, and he framed a beautiful picture for my son Riley.
Nice.
You know, the Chicago Bulls from when they after their 6th title in 8 years, when they're standing up, I believe they always had it in Grant Park? Is that where they had their parades?
Right.
Standing up there with their 6 trophies, and he had it framed and matted for Riley. Just beautiful job, and has a little placard at the bottom to Riley. So it's very, very special. Riley was totally blown away. So we sat down and recorded a video of Riley for John and sent that off to him. Appreciate it so much, because Riley's got a birthday coming up here in exactly 10 days.
Nice.
February 25th. He'll be a big bad 12-year-old. So time is going fast. But no, so Johnny didn't need to do that, and he did. So it was great. And I know Riley was super excited about it. So John, you're awesome, man. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you for doing that, and it definitely put a smile on my son's face. So that's what it's all about.
We got to meet Centino twice. I've gotten to meet him.
Good edibles.
Yep. And I'm actually speaking of meeting. Yeah, I'm heading to Toronto on the 28th with Riley. We're going.
What floor?
No, we're not doing that. We're heading up there to a Bulls Raptors game. We're sitting right behind the Bulls bench, so I want him to experience that, 'cause he's a huge Bulls fan. Elo realized what I paid for the tickets. I probably wouldn't have a house to live in, but we're not going to talk about that here live on air. But actually going up there, and I'm gonna meet the other Claudio Abreu.
Look at that.
Soccer.
Yep, we're not
going
to
talk soccer while
you're
watching the basketball game.
I told him, I said, I'll fucking meet you. We're not talking about running backs. We're not talking about fucking Ronaldo or Mbappe or whoever the fuck you want to talk about. Give me some fucking names. Give this kid 2 fucking games. We're going to meet up pregame and go grab a bite to eat and hang out a little bit, and it should be fun. So
that's awesome.
That's going to be awesome, and awesome for Centino.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
it's such a nice
beautiful gift.
Beautiful. Class guy. Listen, I want to shout out. Did you have another one? I don't want to skip.
No, that's it.
That's cool. I want to shout out Dan Wiederer for being the professional that he is, and the reality of coming on to the show to talk about the Bears.
There it is. Too easy.
What can you say? Like, without this show, getting you to say something that sounds inappropriate. I think that's the fun. It's almost like a game.
Fun, Ivan, right?
It's a game in itself. Who's going to get the clip to drop? But no, seriously, Dan was awesome tonight. Just tuning in, gotta check it back out. Thank you, Dan, for jumping on here and talking some ball with us. So shout him out. Shout out you guys for producing and being in the background, doing all the little things. I think Dan dropped the mic with the description of the Chicago Bears season confusion. You guys take away all that confusion of the things that you do. I want to take a personal moment to shout out Ivan Vargas. Things have been very difficult for me personally with my family and the things that have been going on. It just seems like, as Shane going to tell you, it's like one thing, another thing, another thing. So it's been very difficult for me to do some of the things that I normally just do easily. And Ivan stepping up like you have, really taken a anxiety in my stomach off the table, and that means a lot to me. And we could say this in private, but I want everybody to know what a great job, and I'm so proud to have you a part of this network, man. So I wanted to thank you personally tonight. You've really stepped up, and it means a lot to me and my family. So thank you. What's that?
yeah. Say it again, Phil. I was asleep.
He was asleep.
Oh, I got it now.
No, I appreciate you, bro. Yeah, no doubt. I got your back.
Yes, and I feel that's important to me. Like, I've never had to worry about Shane ever. Other people's loyalty and what they're saying and whispering, but it goes back to what it is in coaching. You have to worry about whispers and closed doors. I've had to worry about some people, and I'm like, should I even have this fucking person a part of this network, or should I be a part of this network? I don't have to you're not that guy, Ivan, and I appreciate that so much.
Angelo, do you remember Greg Braggs?
No.
I wasn't used to 3 men. Anyway, thank you, Ivan. I want to shout out Cool Kennedy. I gave him another chore to do. I've asked him to do a couple things. Do a rewind of TT, and I'll try to capture the essence of it. Ivan, others have so much they're doing. He really wanted to do some sort of video production and editing.
That rewind might be an hour long this week.
This is a 2-hour show, so good luck. Cool Kennedy on that. Just doing a tremendous job. If you haven't, it's a condensed kind of capture of every Keepin It 100, and check it out, give it a share, let other people know. I really think it's something I've always wanted to happen, and for him to bring it to life. And then I gave him another job tonight on a song, so we'll see how he does. That's my guy. Ron G as well. Is there a better human being than Ron G? I don't know.
Nobody wants to piss him off, that's why.
You don't want to die. I love Ron G. Anyway, Bullets, shout out to Bullets. My son's turned 9, and it was, it's been a lot. So you're trying to kind of organize, but you gotta be happy for your sons and their birthday, and you're dealing with your mom sick, my dog is having issues, so it's a dog. I'm a big believer and firm believer in positivity. So you fan HL, happy birthday, shout out to you. Zeke, shout out to you. I got to do a better job. I promise next week I'm going to have a list of people I want to shout out, but I'm going to ask prayers for my mom. Prayers for my mom.
I'm not even going to hit a clip this week. Go ahead and talk about your mom, so don't feel guilty.
She's doing better. Update today.
Awesome. Not
as much pain. They're finally trying to almost get to the point of where we're at with her, but I ask that you pray for my mom and dad, because he's like her live-in nurse, and I think you fans that are real TTNL fans know my dad enough to know that he's going to do everything in his power for his wife, and I respect that relationship and what they mean. I've had to follow in that kind of footsteps, so send some positive energy my mom and dad's way, and to my wife and everybody's wife or significant other. I know Valentine's Day is kind of this fucking made up thing to make us spend more money, but shout out to all of the wives and people and relationships out there that are supportive and happy, and not just happy on Facebook, but in real life.
As long as Cherie's happy, I'm happy.
Exactly, Thomas. Shout out to my wife for everything she's juggling. Can't ever say anything like that.
I love how he mid-sentence is like, fuck. That was actually just beautiful, like just cinematography right there in your brain.
You can't say anything. You're bound to step in.
Oh, wow. 3.5 hour show. We're tired. Come on. It's about half.
All right. That's it this
Thank you,
week.
Steph.
God bless you all.
I never knew
Quit
Steph could juggle, but yeah, go ahead.
Well, she's been juggling a lot of trauma. We'll say that. So shout out to her for dealing with that.
Poor Steph, when she watches her special shout out from her husband.
She ain't gonna watch it. I wasn't used to 3 men
get in somebody's ass today.
What the? Show went off the rails again.
Is that you doing it though?
No.
Oh.
Not me. Cherie.
Cherie or Ivan are on that
Look
one.
at her.
Y'all know I'm not even quick trying to find that stuff.
See, that's her move. She just,
Well, we'll be back next
Hey, wait.
week.
Shut up.
Hope you enjoyed the show. Let's wrap it up. Went a little over what we expected, but well worth it, I think, tonight in the off season as we kick off the fight to March. March is going to be the big time where the Chicago Bears are going to start setting the stage of how they're going to build this football team. And no one's going to cover it better than TTNL to keep you guys honest and break down the tape of every free agent. X's with the O's will be all over that. Every free agent, the Chicago Bears, what are they going to bring? Let's look at the tape. As you know, it never lies. For Shane Marsaw, Cherie, Ivan Vargas, the super producer, Chris Jackal, head of social media engagement and guest services. No meatballs.
No meatballs, baby.
No
Dude,
meatball. Did
took
you know
forever to find that
meatballs was the
goddamn tweet.
number one fucking thing served at the Super Bowl?
Really?
Like, I would have never have guessed that.
That's all, folks.
I hope they don't hit us on that one.
You got an ender?
Is that the ender?
No.
Oh, I thought that was the ender.
It could have been. Angelo, do you remember Greg Braggs?
No.
Was that the ender?
Here it
I can only
is.
imagine the smells coming out of that thing, but only imagine the smells coming out of that thing, but
Jacko better do some shit. Jacko better do some shit. Jacko don't do shit. Jacko don't do shit now. Jacko don't do shit. Jacko don't do shit.